Man, amazing. This has been one that I've been waiting for a while now. So
Oh man, likewise, likewise. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you, man.
awesome. Likewise, man. I love your content. I love your approach. I love your collection and your taste. I mean, everything that you do, it's really it's eclectic, but also you're coming at it with a distinctive taste as well, which I can appreciate. You're sort of you lean heavy into the leathers, you lean heavy into trying experimental builds, and you lean heavily into new makers, obscure makers, and that's where my heart is as well. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what initially attracted me to your site was, initially just seeing a few years ago when you were really heavily into all the leathers with the Truman makeups and you had like so many Trumans and so many different leathers. And to me, it's that sort of melding of the leather, the craftsmanship, and then the smaller makers are awesome because you get to know them. It's not like this anonymous company that you sort of just buy a boot from and never hear from again. There's like a real pride engendered by like just getting to know somebody that like that person put your footwear together. And that's just so cool. Like, and it for me has superseded like the quality of craftsmanship and something like that. I mean, obviously I love high quality boots and welted boots, but like if you get to know somebody who's really trying really hard and doing their best, it means a lot that that person's stuff is on your feet. So I
yeah,
love it. It's been fun. And I see that in years too. I mean, it's been super cool to see you kind of diversify and have people like Mario and others send you boots so you don't have to like front the bill completely yourself.
yes,
So it's like,
exactly.
golly. Yeah, it's super, super cool. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. And before we get started, why don't you just sort of introduce yourself to the audience? You're a YouTuber, an Instagrammer, a boot collector aficionado. So
Yeah.
why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Absolutely. So I'll start with outside of my boot hobby because it does actually pertain to some degree to why I got into footwear. Is I'm actually a physician. I'm a sports medicine doctor here at the University of Washington. So I take care of people with all kinds of foot injuries, and I had my own foot injuries, but that's sort of the world that I live in. I take care of a bunch of different teams. Right now, I take care of a bunch of the University of Washington teams because I'm here in Seattle. In the past, for 12 years, I took care of the Seattle Seahawks. I take care of a number of professional runners and Olympians. And so the world that I live in outside of footwear is a cool world because I get to help people get better. And the reason I got into boots and shoes, really, it started with classic footwear and menswear was I was standing on the sidelines at some of these football games. And in those games, you're literally kind of parked for 8 hours on a turf with concrete underneath. And you get all this team issued like Adidas or Nike or whatever gear that you're supposed to wear. And what I would notice in the aftermath, especially after I hit my 40s, was like um I would ache for days and days after wearing those shoes. Like my feet were just tired and achy, and then it would go up to my like IT bands and my back, and I was kind of miserable. And so this was after like 7 or 8 years of doing this regularly, and I finally was like, you know what? I'm gonna just try a pair of dress shoes. Like I'm just gonna get some Allen Edmonds or something from Nordstrom and just see if I can notice a difference because I'm not tolerating this situation. And so I picked up that pair, put it on, wore the shoes on some Seahawk game, and then my pain was gone. And I was like, "Whoa, what's up with this?" Like I had very little to no pain. I didn't have the recovery that it took to get better. And I was sort of shocked. And I remember when going from Alan Edmonds, kind of diving towards Carmina, watching Kirby Allison videos and the Elegant Oxford, and kind of diving that route because in the medical profession, you can dress up a little bit more. And so I was kind of heading in that direction. And then the pandemic happened and everything kind of shut down. What was interesting though for me is that while everybody else was parked at home, I was still going to work and I was still at sidelines. I was still in clinic. I was still having to dress up. And suddenly I'm seeing all these people selling their really, really nice footwear for pennies on the dollar, literally. Like I was getting Antonio Macariello shoes in like cordovan and pigskin leathers for like a couple $100 when they would cost like 1,500. Like so I like was able to suddenly take this deep dive not just in terms of like the quality and construction of like what does it mean to have a foot that actually is well supported in different environments and is comfortable, rather than just squishy comfortable. And also understanding, gosh, now I'm getting these really high quality pieces of footwear and looking at them and studying them. And I'm a deep dive guy. I think you're probably, getting to know you a little bit. You're really into that space as well. I think all of us really enjoy well-made things.
Yeah.
My prior major hobby was photography, still is, but photography is my big thing. I shoot Leica cameras and medium format cameras and all this other stuff. But I
Okay.
like well-made things. I think we all have different things. Some are cars, some are watches, some are audio, whatever. And so bottom line is I got to understand the shoes through the lens of appreciating the well-made, and then also from the health standpoint of the health benefits I was getting from wearing comfortable shoes. And then
Right.
over the past couple of years, I've just kind of moved towards heritage footwear because honestly, the community is way cooler. Like it's just
Oh,
way cooler. It's just much
gotcha.
more interactive, much more engaged. And while the craftsmanship may be honestly a slightly bit lower than say some of the dressmakers, the engagement, the audience, the communication, the social media, the everything is so much more fulfilling. And I really get a lot out of that piece of it, communicating, connecting with people all over the world, not just makers, but enthusiasts, people like you. And so that's sort of been my journey, basically, into footwear.
Okay, awesome. Wow, that is so cool. So, since you're into health, you're a healthcare practitioner. This is a good example to kind of pick your brain on some things. Uh,
Yeah.
because I've always kind of been health focused.
Yeah, I could tell. Great job on your weight loss recently and walking and doing all those things you look great.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's really been something like during the pandemic. I started gaining weight, man. I just
Oh man, I feel you. I feel you.
packing it on. And I have I have an exercise bike, a recumbent bike that I used to sit on for an hour, probably 3 times a week, and just
Mhm.
sweat. And that was good, but regardless of doing that, like the weight wasn't coming off.
Yeah.
So I started looking, following Tom DeLauer and Coach Greg. I'm not sure
Mhm.
if you listen to those. Do you ever listen to those?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm getting more into some of that space now because of struggling with my own weight journey and just trying to figure out, okay, I hit a wall, like what do I do next? And kind of trying to
Yeah.
understand that better. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've always been big into nutrition and
Yep.
things like that. And yeah, it was a Tom DeLauer video that he said, walking is the king of fat loss. You
Oh
burn
yeah.
more calories per step walking, or sorry, more fat per as a percentage walking
Yes.
as compared to running or anything else. And
Yeah.
that just blew my mind because I'm like, wait, walking is the answer?
Walking.
That's so
Yeah.
lame.
I know it seems so. It's something you can sustain for long periods of time.
Yep.
And it's really just effort put in, effort put out. And as long as you can walk, generate some degree of heart rate elevation and just kind of get yourself going a little bit. I get about 15,000 steps a day, and I've done that for the past 5 years since this sort of foot journey started.
Wow.
And that's sort of how I get my main exercise. And it's kept my weight pretty steady. And occasionally I'll try to amp it up with an extra workout here or there. But yeah, like to me, the health benefits of just, as a sports med doc, I really just think people should be active and whatever it takes to be moving and active. And that's why I love footwear is because you want to put that pair of footwear on that you just got and just go. And like for you doing all the hiking that you do and really like I love that you use your footwear. You could see the use in there and like that's I love that part of it. And it
That's
combines
awesome.
those hobbies really. What's an active hobby? It actually has outcomes, not than just
Yes.
staring at your boots. So
Absolutely. And what's kind of cool about the whole thing is like it's like a culmination of collecting boots and then realizing all this time, 8 years later, like, whoa, I could now use these as gym equipment. I could use these as lifestyle equipment, not just to
yeah,
look cool and walk around in, but to
sure.
actually get myself healthy again. And so, yeah, I've just been using these boots, trying to put 15K steps a day, sometimes 20. But I'm noticing a huge dramatic patina shift in my boots since I started doing this.
It's amazing that you can, yeah, I love it. I live, in Seattle, and so the patina potential, I love that patina potential
Yes,
is like high.
yes, it is.
You're trumping through puddles and leaves, and I have a route that takes me up and down some hills through some parks. I have two Australian shepherds, so we're always out and about walking. They're actually right behind me right now, and
Cool.
they're my little vehicles because if they don't get exercise, they go nuts. So I have to get the exercise, they get the exercise, and my boots get a nice workout. And I cycle through like I have a pair like a group of three or three-ish boots that I cycle through every like month or so, and then I kind of rotate them, and that way I'm not kind of wearing through any one pair. Plus, it keeps me like I have a tough time with the Thunderdome stuff just because after a while, I just kind of get tired of wearing the same boots. And
Yes,
so,
yes.
as much as I love the idea, I like the idea of like cycling through a few different things personally.
Yeah, me too. The Thunderdome puts a stall on things, that's
Ooh,
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
before
feel
we
like
get
I got all this extra stuff. I'm not wearing it. What the heck, dude? Like, especially
right,
for guys like us who like have like upwards of however many boots we have. So,
right, you really want to give them all love.
oh yeah, for
Like if
sure, for
you had
sure.
100 kids, you'd want to give them all love.
Oh
So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
just
It's a good way. You
neglect,
can't be just focusing on the one that's smart.
right? Exactly. You're gonna wind up with one dysfunctional family if you do.
Yeah, for sure. For
Oh,
sure.
so before we progress, what boots and or shoes are you wearing today?
Yeah, so I am really into engineers right now. I finally found my way after years and years and years and years and years into engineers. And I kind of scroll my Instagram feed a little bit and kind of like, oh my gosh, yeah, I am wearing a crap ton of engineers right now.
Yeah,
And so between my engineers and then this creosote, oh yeah, there it is. Yep, yep.
yep,
Zeros, Crush on Retro, pretty much Japanese or something similar engineering style is my jam right now. And
nice.
I just I like it took me a long time to get to engineers. Like I was watching your videos. I was watching, all the videos from Jake from Almost Vintage Style. I was reaching out to Dave from the Vintage Future. And I was sort of dancing around it for a couple years. My very first pair of engineers was about 4 or 5 years ago, at the beginning of my journey with boots, at least. I got a pair of Wesco Mr. Lou's in a navy wax flesh from Horween. I think it was
Ooh,
originally sold by Standard and Strange in Oakland. Like that was one of their stock models back
okay.
then. And I just could not. There it is, Wesco, Mr. Lou. I remember that box.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Look at that. Boom. Wow. Now
Brought mine
that is
along.
ready. We did not plan this.
Nope.
Holy cow. It's like the exact boot.
Yep.
Or close
Except
to
this is
it.
an olive chrome Excel.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Totally. Love
Your
it.
navy wax flesh would have been sick though.
Oh, it was cool as heck. I mean, that thing was looked amazing. And I like as my very first engineer, it was sort of a bit of a shelf queen for me, like sat up there like this little beacon of like amazingness.
Yeah.
And I just love that look of that last, that kind of ultra rugged build, that purpose driven like double row stitch down. It just was like holy crap. And I got it off the stitch down Discord forum from a guy who um basically was like, hey, this is, we have the same type of foot, similar feet. I think he ended up being a half size larger than me after we sort of figured it all out. But like at that point, I was wearing a half size larger because I have not lost some of this weight that I've lost. And so I got it. The problem at that time was I think it was really two things. It was the navy waxed flesh was so rigid, like it was like this boot, it was like a tank of a leather.
Yeah.
And trying to get your foot in, like what I've realized or I'm realizing now is that like the height of the instep of that boot coupled with like the space that you have to like, the way that you kind of get your foot in to try to slip it through into the heel cup underneath that instep, that was almost impossible. Like I was unbuckling the thing, I was like trying everything, and I was like literally like I was sweating trying to get this thing on. And
Wow.
because I was so early in my journey, I just kind of gave up. I'm like, screw this. I'm just gonna wear some laced boots and kind of go that route. And it was only in the past probably year and a half, I started getting into Japanese footwear. Oh yeah, those
Okay.
Lofgrens.
These are flatheads.
Flathead. Oh yeah, I've been meaning to try check these guys out. Those are
Yeah.
slick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
They
think
look a
that
little like the Lofgrens.
Yeah, they do look. I think these were built by the same factory that makes the Lofgrens, actually.
Yeah, yeah, they have that same. Do they have a storm welt too, or is that a flat welt?
There's a storm weld on there.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking Lofgren. Fantastic.
Yes,
Lofgren's what I equate with that storm melt, but there you go. Flathead does it too. Those are slick.
yes, absolutely. And the process you're describing is getting your foot in there past the flathead, or sorry,
Yeah.
past the instep. That's called the pass through,
The pass through, yes.
and that's the difficult part with.
Oh my gosh. So the pass through on that Mr. Lou was very difficult for my foot. And I have a kind of medium to high instep. I have a fairly high arch and I have a narrow heel. Like I have a narrowy heel.
Okay,
And so that actually was kind of hard for the Mr. Loose because they kind of have more space in the heel
yeah,
and maybe a medium to slightly, I don't know if it's a lower instep or whatnot, but that heel is like a kind of, it's almost like a moat on a castle or something like that. It
right.
sort of doesn't round out as much as like as this is my Zeros here. You can see how much that sucker tapers. Uh,
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
this Dale, you need to try. You've had a pair of Zeros, but they were, I think, Mario's or something. The East West Apparel makeups are absolutely incredible. I mean, I'm just kind of
Wow.
blown away. I'm talking with Jamie Lee there about getting a black Chrome Excel pair on top of the Western boots I got, their Picos, and then their other one. But yeah, like I basically sort of have been on this journey trying to find the best engineer. Now that I initially started with a bristle black, like a local one of their local leathers that a guy sold to me for like a couple $100. So I was like, $200 for an engineer. I can try this out. It was perfect sizing on their capoc last, that more like clinch style last that they have, that clinch kind of tapered dress last. And I got into that and I was like, wow, okay, I can totally do engineers. This totally works for me.
Right.
And then what was interesting is for my Patina Thunderdome, my pair of boots there was actually a wax flesh pair from Parkhurst. And what I
Okay.
noticed was that that waxed flesh over the course of the first couple months of wearing it, the top of the leather collapsed on the top of my foot. It like kind of rolled and
Yeah.
it pissed the hell out of my feet off. Like
Yeah.
I started getting nerve pain on the top of my foot, like
Oh, really?
aching pain. Like and so suddenly anything that was like a medium instep for me, like that I could tolerate, but it felt a little snug, just made my feet ache. And so I now have to use shoes that have a medium to high instep. So I became much more like, okay, what can I tolerate? What can I not? So stuff
Yeah.
that I might have been able to tolerate a year ago, right now, I just because my nerves are a little pissed off,
Mhm.
like I have to be smart about it. And so like it's
Absolutely.
actually helped me really figure out what fit should be, to be honest with you.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and it's trial and error, and
Oh
unfortunately,
yeah.
there's just no foolproof way to ensure you're going to be happy with the fit. Because even some of these makers, they could get your dimensions just right, but you could put
Yeah.
on and be like, I just don't like this.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's like aesthetics. It's fit. You can get everything right, but like everything is not. All right, I'm gonna get the dogs out of here. What's guys?
Okay, no worries.
Go, go, go. Oh, I know. Here, I'll show you Poppy. This is Poppy
Hey,
right here.
Poppy.
Poppy. This is Poppy. And then Dex, these are the walking inspiration. And then this is Dexter right here. This is the
Oh,
little
wow.
mischief maker, this little nugget here.
Beautiful.
But they are my patina power right there, those two
Yes.
guys. And so hopefully you can tolerate a little of them. They should chill out here in a second. But
Oh, yeah, of
they,
course.
they get excited when I'm talking and doing podcasts, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. No, don't worry about it. My cats are probably going to attack me any any
But
second
yeah, I
now.
was I was really curious from your experience because you've had a longer, kind of more continuous relationship on and off with engineers. Like, and I mean, I was curious, like, how you have come to the ones that you sort of use the most and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me grab these. My original Thunderdome pair.
Oh,
These are
nice.
Renav Goods.
Yeah, the short engineers.
Yeah, the
Love those
short
things.
ones. And
Yeah.
and this was my intro into engineers because frankly, this tall shaft scared the crap out of me. Like,
Yeah, 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 totally, totally.
I thought there's no way I'm gonna get that underneath my pant leg. I wear 14-inch leg openings and
Yeah.
I think it was Westco. They ran what was called the Boss boot, and it was essentially this. Pretty sure it was Westco, and it was in natural crust shell cordovan. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. What a
and
cool. Heck
Yeah,
yeah.
it had like a cool bump toe and it was only six
Yeah.
inches. And so I reached out to Renav and I said, "Hey, could you guys make me a 6 inch engineer?" And yeah, so that was my first step into it. And then I got a little bit more daring and I opted for some Renav Goods 8 inch engineers, same line.
Starting to get taller.
Yes, little taller, bit by bit. And then finally, what was it? Um, yeah, I got some John Lofgren engineers in Black Chrome Excel, but they were size 8, and they were just my foot was throbbing. I couldn't stand to have
Yep. I struggle with that with Lofgren. I had a lot of hot spots on those Lofgrens. They're beautiful, but
yeah,
holy crap, they hurt my foot.
right.
Did you end up
Exactly.
sizing up or did you just say, hey, I'm gonna put these aside because the last doesn't work?
Yeah, so I forget how it happened, but there was a guy that had these flathead engineers in a size
Mm,
8.5, and
yeah.
they were too big for him. And he's like, "Hey, you want to trade?" And so I sent him the
Yeah.
ones. He sent me these natural,
Oh
and
man.
these fit like a glove. They fit like a
Perfect.
dream. So the 8.5
Yeah.
definitely good size.
I might have to look into those again because I have not looked into flatheads in this recent journey of I've had. Like I kind of had a similar experience with you. Like my first pair that I truly fell in love with, like from a fit and a style perspective, were these Brian the Bootmaker. These guys are crazy.
Man,
Look at this thing. This is a Italian horsehide. I'm pretty sure it's Merriam based on the handle and the kind of temper of it. It's got a softer vibe to it than some of the other makers, but it's like an older boot. It's like probably like a 6 or 7, like a 5 or 6 year old boot. And
wow.
I'm actually the thing I love about the this particular pair is how well it cups my heel. Like it really grabs my heel perfectly.
Okay.
And this, like, I have bigger calves, and so this little bump, like, made it feel like I wasn't always getting kind of not squeezed is the right way, but I wasn't always constantly aware of the leather. Like this would kind of line my denim rather than line my leg. And so I actually liked it because it felt like I had shoes on and not
Yeah.
necessarily a full-on boot on. And it's shorter. Like this bristle black is, like about that much taller.
Yeah.
And this was like I think a 7 or 8 inch. Once it collapsed, it was kind of like almost like a 7.5, 8 inch guy.
Okay.
And the only issue is that this was about a half size to a size too small up front. So I'm actually going to send these to Brian, just message with him, and he's going to size them up by one. He's going to be able to do that and then do a resole so I can get my own sole going just because I'm weird that way. Like these soles are fine. They're
Yeah.
a little worn out, but like they are, they're fine. But I just
Cool.
figured I'm going to send them to him to get resized. I might as well get them resold and have them be like mine. So I'm going
Yeah.
to bring up the front of the boot and he's going to increase the size there and it should be good.
How's he able to increase the size?
I think there's a couple, I was asking him, and I think, there's when you last the shoe, he leaves some tolerance for adjusting things. So like there's extra leather tucked underneath the welt basically that then can be used. And then with
Wow.
some of the leathers, I think you can also stretch them a little bit. Like Jim McFarland is showing some videos right now where he has this like crazy spray that he uses, and then he like basically puts the boots or shoes in this device that like can expand different parts of the shoe. It's super cool. I was like, wow, look at that thing. And so he can expand the forefoot, the midfoot. He can get like spots like, hey, you're a little tight on, this part of the boot or whatever, and like let's go and increase right here, or let's go and increase right here. And then you can kind of create almost more of like a bespoke reshaped boot. And I'm not sure if Brian does it. I think he just goes up by he like increases the last and just makes it bigger that way. But he said he was able to do it up to full size.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not
Insane.
cheap, but Brian's not cheap, but it's
No.
not a full price pair of his boots again. It's like a few $100. So
Okay.
like
No
four or five
problem.
hundred bucks to like literally get it resold, resized. I think it's gonna end up costing me around 500, which, you
Yeah.
know, I paid not that much. It'll still be half the price of buying new
Yeah.
compared to what with the money I already put in there. So
Yeah.
that was my first jam right there was that brand. The Roll Club is so good, man. Whew.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Have you ever tried his stuff at all or reviewed any of his stuff? I feel like you've
Um,
reviewed some.
yeah, I got a pair to review, but I don't own any myself.
Yeah.
That wait list right now is probably what, like Gabbard 4 years.
That's the other guy. I got so lucky with that pair of I got a pair of creosote on at the Stitch Down Discord. Somebody had posted a pair, and within 3 minutes I responded and had bought it. Literally 3 minutes after the post. I was like, oh, and it was like size and a half too big for me, according to the guy's measurements. But he was like, "This foot is killing my feet. Like I cannot fit. Like I tried wearing them once, and he's like, I couldn't do it. So I was like, I'm gonna give it a try. I'm not sure. I might piss Gabbard off because Gabbard's supposedly like pretty particular about people reselling his boots and stuff. He's like, I'll take them back and, but. I
Interesting.
bought him and Gabbard's awesome, man. Gabbard is, I don't know if you've interacted with him much, but he is a top-notch guy. He is like funny and like passionate. And again, just like I never bought his boots, but I've ended up ordering his cardigan and I got his jacket coming as well as leather car coat. I've ordered those guys. So
Cool.
yeah, my first leather jacket in the past 15 years, probably.
Oh, dang, that is cool. Oh, so you're getting a car coat from him?
Yep, I'm getting his car coat collaboration with Field Leathers. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Sweet.
think he does the leather dyeing. He gets like I think it's Wickett and Craig. He overdyes it, and he like does this green underdye, and it kind of strikes it through from a natural or a russet color. He like greens it, and then he overdyes it black. So in light it looks black, but in certain light you'll see the green popping through. And then he gives it to Sam at or Greg at Fields Leathers, and Greg will make the coat. And then they got another guy who does all the buttons and the hardware, who's also a craftsman. So it's literally, I mean, it's expensive ass coat, but it's a literally a piece of art. Like, and if I figure I'm gonna have one coat, I might as well just go to the top of the mountain and just park there, you know.
Straight to the straight to the
Go
summit.
right on. I was like, so yeah, that's
Dude,
happening probably in the next 6 months to a year, whenever they can get that thing to me. So
yeah.
you know,
That's incredible. Oh man,
yeah.
you're such an artist,
But
truly.
yeah, I don't like to wait. That's a challenge for me. I'm not a huge waiter, you know, like I like to have the boots quick.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's tough for me to wait for more than like I've waited the longest I've ever waited for a pair is 2 years. I got a pair of Seiji McCarthy shell cordovan they're like short wing bluchers, but they're like the old school American gunboats, but from that he made to bespoke levels, and it took 2.5 almost 2.5 years. So
Wow.
I'm not waiting that long again for anything. So
Right, definitely. I
I don't
can
mind 6 months or 8 months, that's okay. But it's if it's longer than that, I'm sort of like my style, my taste may have totally changed by then. So
exactly. These Mr. Lou's I waited forever for.
yeah, how long did you wait for those?
I want to say almost 2 years.
Whoa, wow,
Yeah, I put the half down with the shop Vancouver, and
yeah,
and then it was real confusing because I didn't get an email to put the other half down, but
yeah.
I had the page up from like I don't know the middle of the year, like 2 years ago or something like that,
Oh my gosh.
and I would periodically refresh the page, and then eventually I refreshed the page, and it gave me the update to complete the order. The other,
Oh, okay.
so I
It's
just
kind of
did it.
funny.
And then I got an email, hey man, we're gonna shoot you those boots when we get them restocked or something.
Oh my gosh.
And then
2 years.
yeah, it was a year and a half to 2 years. It was a long time. It was a very
What do you think about them? Do they work for you? I mean, obviously I told you my story, but I wasn't sure if that they work. Oh, look at those, man. Dr. Soul.
yeah.
Nice waist too. A nailed waist with that little bevel in there, or that little looks like a mini bump probably from the shank, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah,
Double row stitch down, I think, probably right. Something
yes
like
it
that.
is. It's stitched
Yeah.
and welted. And
Wow.
yeah,
Clean, clean
beautiful.
too. Very clean work.
Yeah, yeah, very nice work. And I love them. I haven't tried them on yet because I want my first I have the ritual. I have my first wear.
Yeah.
I need to get them on camera and everything.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I get what you're talking about. I don't wear them until I get them on camera, and then I start to wear them.
Yes, absolutely. That's part of the that's part of the penance of us boot tubers is we
Oh
have
yes.
we don't just
It's
buy
it's
stuff.
okay. You get to appreciate it as like a work of art for a while. Like I honestly think of boots as and shoes as works of art. Like there's so much that goes into like the crafting of these things that like I'm right now waiting on a pair of boots from Winston slash Midas. And
Oh, okay.
Emil from Winston slash Midas, the guy who started it, he's literally, there's some crazy stuff going on in Indonesia right now with the boot making scene there, from what I can tell. Like I've been sort of there's been some interesting things where I think some of the people who are working underneath some of the stalwarts have kind of gone out on their own, and a couple people did it like without whatever permission is needed in that culture, and like
Yeah.
created some tension there. Yeah, Midas is amazing. They're like,
Yeah.
for me, a perfect crossover for a long time between that kind of heritage style and the classic style. Like they introduce elements of like dressy style, and they still have this rugged build, rugged materials, rugged leathers, all the kind of thick heritage style stuff. And it's like this melding. But Emil has always been kind of playing around with his last. And for the past year, he's been doing his like ready to wear stuff through people like Rafa Brothers and some of the others. But he's literally redoing all of his last, and it's taken over a year to do it. Like he
Wow.
jokes around that he only posts on his own personal Instagram, like pictures of him doing food and like hanging out with his wife and kid, but he's like in the background, he's been working hard on just like perfecting his last because I want that more rugged, like it almost looks like a 301 style last. It's like a blocky last, and I want to do a lace to toe in that with him with all leather componentry. And he's like, I sent him one of my fancy automatic watches like about a year ago because he posted this picture on Instagram of this watch. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I have that watch. And he's like, I just lost out on this bidding for this watch. I'm like, I'll send it to you. Send me a pair of your best boots. Uh, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. I can't do Winston, but I'll do Midas." And I was like,
Really.
"Okay." So I've been waiting and waiting just for him to perfect the last, which to me is like that's kind of awesome. Like, just get that last. It's his
Absolutely.
land shaker last, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
Winston. Yeah, Winston's off. Yeah, he's great, man. Like that's
okay.
to me, that's some of the nicest footwear you can possibly buy today. And the thing I like about Winston and Midas, and it sort of shows in the branding, is
Yeah.
that there is a rugged aesthetic. If you are into boots or heritage footwear and want to dabble in a pair of like nice dressier Oxfords or like a nice derby,
Hmm.
that brand is fantastic because their lasts cater to us. Like
Right.
it's not perfect, but they have a little bit more. They're not super pointy like the Italian lasts. Yeah, yeah, that's like a really rugged. That's their Landshaker last, and
Okay.
that particular last is a little bulkier. I have taken like some of the Winston pairs. Like I have a pair of Winstons that I used Shinky horse butt leather in, and it's a short, like your short engineer. It's a short Jodhpur boot made out
Okay.
of this Shinky, and it's kind of like a mind-blowing boot, and it feels like a boot, but it's like dressed up like a dress shoe. Like I could wear it to a wedding easy,
Right.
but on my feet it feels like a pair of rugged boots. It's
Okay.
super. So I like that interface. I like that kind of melding of the two.
Me too. Absolutely. And so are Winston and Midas, are they the same maker there? I
Same
did.
same guy who started it. So Emil Putra, who started Winston, he actually initially had Winston kind of doing everything. He had like a couple different lines within Winston. And I think he has different like groups of people working for him. Like the thing about Indonesia that I'm discovering is that if you were like working with one maker, you'd think it's like one guy and then like another group of small guys in a garage all working together. Like you see pictures of Rizky and from Underhood doing like he's like the guy mentoring like two or three other guys, or it's just him depending on when you get him. That's
Yeah.
not really how it works most of the places. What's actually going on is that there's like a guy who does patina and polishing. There's a guy who does the uppers like they do in the UK. There's a guy who does the sole work, and they all kind of work with each other. And so
Yeah.
one of the brands I've been working with more recently is Kyatoko Handmade. Like I think you kind of fell in love just like I did. I got this yeah, here we are. Look at that, old boy. There it is. Look
The
at that,
old
dude.
boys. Two old
Yeah.
boys on
This is the very
display.
first commercially available old boy. I
Yeah.
got because he CK Yeo from he's another guy who's like a major engineer enthusiast, and he's
Yeah.
based out of Singapore. And he reached out to me kind of out of the blue to the point where I thought it was like actually like initially I thought it was bullshit. Like I was
Yeah.
like, is this dude for real? Like he's talking about, like basically making boots with custom lasts that I could send my own foot measurements. They would essentially craft a last And then they would build this boot and they're like, we have this design. And he sent me a few pictures of this and I was like, whoa, look at that thing.
Right.
I love derby boots, and this is sort of a throwback to like a vintage era with this kind of funky broguing that you're seeing along the sides here that you don't see anywhere else. That kind of Balmoral line vibe that you get that really like, kind of swings. And
Yeah.
then really like lovely broguing. Like
Right.
look at that stuff. And
Unreal.
initially I was gonna go with a cheaper leather because I was like, I don't want, if you're gonna send me a pair of boots for free, like I don't want to rip you off or anything. So I was looking at some Italian like horsehide thing that was pretty good. But then he said they were trying to build the boot and they just couldn't do it. Like the leather kept tearing. So he's like, why don't we just upgrade you to Shinky shell cordovan? We have extra Shinky shell cordovan. And I was like, what? So I got this pair of Shinky shell cordovan old boys that is literally possibly my favorite boot. I mean, this
Yeah.
thing is just, it's like perfection. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally perfect. Like,
Right.
I feel bad wearing it sometimes, but I love, like, it's not creasing. Some of my other Shinky would crease. Like, I have a few pair from Hephaestus, now Timberly, that the leather actually creased on me, like shell core. I think they just thinned it out. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Beautiful. And
Mark Alberts.
this, yeah, is that Shinky as well? That looks
Yeah,
Shinky
that's
like.
chinky. Yeah.
Oh,
And there's the crease
beautiful.
you're talking about.
Yeah, 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 totally. Yeah, that creasing. This one doesn't do it. I don't know if it's how they've clicked it or lasted it, but
Yeah.
this just rolls like, and it's this beautiful color, like this kind of, it's they call it cognac, but it's not. It's almost like a reddish, brown, kind of funky. And then yeah, you got I think what's horsebutt there. Oh,
Yeah.
so nice. Look at how this
Hello.
rolls.
Yeah.
It's like
And
the best click boot I've ever seen. Like honestly, it's
it
incredible.
really is. And I have a theory as to why it's not rolling. It's because
Yeah.
this is just my theory. The shape of the toe box, see how it's
Uh-huh.
boxy, and
Yep,
then
yep.
the structure in it, it's not
Yeah.
it's not going to form rolls in the same way because it's not a free flowing uh portion of the boot. It's like when you contrast that with
Yep. With
some,
something that doesn't have a cap toe, it's just sort of, or that one is pretty much just an open channel like vamp.
yeah, there's nothing restricting this from forming rolls or
Mhm.
creases on this pair, but this is sort of built up. It's so overbuilt, and not to
Yeah.
mention the shape as well. Like I had Truman
Yeah.
Tuscanello horse rump, and they were forming rolls. They were a cap toe. They were forming rolls, but the it was a collapsed toe, and it just wasn't shaped like this. You see this
Yeah.
bump here?
It's got that little bump, which I
Yeah,
love. Like
me
that
too.
little nose, that little bump. I think you got the same one.
Yeah,
This last is really awesome. And it's got that little bit of toe
yeah.
spring to it too, which is just like helps with the, walk in. And
It helps with the strike and the stride. Yes.
I've been trying to figure that out. I was actually really curious about your thoughts because I've been thinking about this a lot in terms of, some boots, and even from boot to boot, like you'll see a boot like that, just one pair, one foot looks amazing and it forms these great rolls. The other foot's kind of a little like maybe some creasy stuff. I've seen this a lot with like Viberg and Rolling Dub Trio. Like one boot will look amazing and the other boot will be like, it's okay. It's like not as like ooh, it's not as like ooh. And
Right.
so, and then there's
Right.
other makers like the Zeros boots that I've been talking about. This is this cowhide Douglas leather, and you can see it does have these little creases form. I've worn this a couple times, but it's actually doing it looks very aesthetically pleasing. It's like it's not nasty creasing, it's not bad looking. And every
Right.
pair of Zeros I've had, like they do that. And I'm like, what is it? Is it the way they're taking the leather and stretching it across the last? Like leather, like if you think of like a piece of steak. If you
Yeah.
cut a piece of steak one way, it's going to be easy to chew. If you cut it another way along the grain versus across the grain, it's going to like be harder to chew, literally, like the
Yeah.
same steak. And so I'm just wondering if there's something about the properties of that leather, like how it stretches, if you stretch it along the grain or against the grain, and then how you bring it over the last, and then how it's, so it's not just what you select, like how it's clicked, but it's also how it's lasted and how you like rotate the leather on the last that might have some impact on like how it lays out at the end.
Absolutely. There's so many factors that go into
Yeah,
that, and especially the grain structure of the
yeah.
particular piece of leather that they clicked.
Good
Essentially,
point. Good point. That green
when
structure is huge.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I could grab, oh, actually, I don't have it. I was gonna say my Herman Oak, for my thick insoles. When
yeah.
when I have that whole thing, there's one, this thing, it's like, I don't know, 70 pounds, this thing. It's a
Wow.
huge, heavy cut of leather. But there's portions of it near the armpit that you just
Yeah.
can't use any of that, man. It's got wrinkles, and
Yeah.
it's
Just
ugly.
weird.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
inconsistent. It's spongy. Like, you could stretch it sometimes. You could rip it if you want. Like, there's certain
Interesting.
areas of it you just can't use.
Can't
Uh,
do it. Yeah.
right. I'm trying to see if there's an example. So, but
Interesting.
yeah, it does just come down to the particular piece of the hide that they're using.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really how it's like that piece is a better piece for how it looks and how it behaves.
Yes,
Yeah, you hear
exactly.
this a little about like I feel like people like to use like the shoulders because the shoulders stretch a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and then the bellies are a little less stretchy and spongy. Like there's like that I like you're a leather worker. I have not gotten into that space.
Yeah.
I would love to. I just I don't have the guts. So
Yeah.
I can stitch human skin together. I just don't want to stitch much else together.
The good news is you don't need guts to do leather. You just need skin.
Yes, there you go. That's in.
No pun intended.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
A
but
little anatomy humor there.
right, exactly. You just need a thick epidermis. No, just
Yes, yes. And a
um,
flat earth, apparently, and then we're
yeah.
good. We're ready to go. Oh my
By the way,
gosh.
for those tuning in, on this flat Earth. I'm located here in Baltimore, and Ashwin, you're located on
Yeah, it's a flat line. It's very straight. There's a few hills called the Rocky Mountains, but it's really flat at the end of the day. And if you
right.
keep looking, you're just going to keep looking all the way to Japan, where we talk about
Right.
Japanese boots. It's all one line.
Yeah, you could probably see Japan from where you're at
I
since
bet. Yeah, yeah.
flat.
I've been going crazy. I don't know. Have you gotten into the whole Japanese boot making thing at all? Like I like the stitch down videos really like triggered something in me, and I've been going deep on those. Like getting into all these like vintage, like rare like Red Wing makeups from Japan. Like I was never into Red Wing. I'm the one guy who didn't start with Red Wing, and now
Right.
I'm suddenly into Red Wing. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like I'm into lesser boots, but they're like cool because they're collectible. Like they're like literally like collecting stuff.
Yes.
Like that's where the value is. It's not necessarily anything else. It's just that. And then their aesthetics, like the Japanese do such cool things with their boots. It's like ridiculous.
They're some of the most discerning customers on the planet. That's
Oh
why
yeah.
Viberg has a shop there. That's why
And
Red Wing has exclusive Japanese makeups that only
yeah.
and it's like, this is a special like market, and we're gonna
Yeah.
cater. We're gonna cater
Yeah. Oh,
this
it's so
stuff.
cool. It is like it's like denim, like you can get it kind of get into all the Japanese selvage denim makes and this ounce of this and all the different, mills that are across Okayama or wherever. Like I'm just like it's dangerous, but
Yes, it is.
it's I've been digging around. I'm like, ooh, look at this. Like, oh, Attic's kind of cool, or
Yeah,
Makers is cool. Nobody's even heard of Makers in the US. And like, I think the only guy who's heard of them is Jake from Almost Vintage Style, who's like figured this out like several years ago, and now he's like addicted to like the Japanese thing. At least he was. Now he's getting into the more vintage stuff. Like that seems he's making a slow transition towards just getting the vintage. He's not
yeah,
almost vintage anymore. He's gone straight vintage, which is
yeah. He
cool.
it's not almost anymore. It's almost off.
He's almost repro. Now he's true vintage.
True vintage style.
So,
Jake, if you're
yeah.
listening, change it from almost to true. Yeah,
Yes, true vintage. I love it. I love
true
it.
vintage style.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
He is he fully admits that he's like to the point of almost like cosplaying eras, like in terms of his style. Like that's not my style at all. I like to kind of blend in a little bit more. Like I like to wear higher cut, higher rise jeans, but I don't like to pull them super high. Like just I kind of like the way it drapes. I grew up in the 90s where everything was super baggy, like skateboard culture and all the loose stuff. So like now we're in this era where things are like a little wider, like straight leg, wide leg jeans. So I'm like a straight leg to a wide leg. I think
okay.
when I started watching you, you were more like narrow jeans, kind of like hence the engineer challenges. And like,
Yes,
but
yes.
having grown up whenever I did, like 80s and 90s, it was all kind of baggy, loose cuff. And now I'm kind of like trying to figure my way around it.
Yeah.
And Jake's been great because he's like a tremendous resource. I take whatever I want from his knowledge and kind of turn it into whatever I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. And yeah, believe it or not, I too grew up in the 90s where boot
Yeah.
was the thing. And
Yeah.
I never wore a straight pant my whole life up until
Really?
yeah, up until the age of probably I want to say 25. Uh
Wow.
I had a style mentor. This guy worked at J. Crew and you
Yeah.
know, he got me into the 770s, which is the slimmer cut.
Yep. Slimmer straight.
Yeah, slimmer straight, but then he's like you got to get the 484s. And so I finally did it, and I'm like, whoa, this is actually better. I actually,
Yeah. It's a different vibe. It's
it
sort
is.
of like, it's like boxers and briefs, you got to figure out which
Yeah,
style you're into, it's pros and cons.
exactly.
So,
Huge pros and cons there. I found there's actually a practical reason to have a slim leg pant, and that's because when I'm walking outside and say the wind's blowing, I'm more aerodynamic.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. That's a good point. You're moving quicker.
Right. Like that one guy that shaves his armpits so he's more aerodynamic.
Oh my
Like,
gosh. Yeah. Not crossing into that level of style or fashion. My armpit hairs are firmly established.
yeah, they're
And they're not going to make an appearance on my YouTube, I promise. For any of
that's a
you
growth.
guys who are thinking about armpit hair or armpit
Right.
hair fetishists, that's just not my bag. Not where I'm at. So
But if we decide to open up an OnlyFans for armpit,
yes, yes. Then maybe I can make some money. If I can make some money off of my armpit hair, like,
if you're good at something,
maybe.
why do it for free? That's what I say.
Yeah, yeah. I love how people think we actually make money off of this stuff, and they're like,
Right.
"Oh, like you're under the dime of whoever." I'm like, dude, like
Yeah.
I haven't even monetized my channel yet, just because I'm like, anytime I turn something from more of like a enjoyable hobby and creating to like to work, I lose some of that luster. It just loses its enjoyment for me,
It,
and I love
that's
this space so much that it's precious to me this way, and I don't really thankfully, I don't need the money to like have to enjoy this hobby. Like I'm lucky that I have a decent salary enough. And other than my kids, like my mortgage and my kids, like academic education stuff, like I'm kind of okay. Like,
absolutely, absolutely. I'm
yeah,
I'm with you there too. That's been a subject of struggle for me as well because it's like, you know, I get into this range, or I get into this phase of where I'm just like cranking out videos, and I feel like I'm just a production machine, and it's like, whoa, I'm getting burnt out actually. Like
yeah,
this isn't enjoyable anymore. If I'm serious about this, like I need to be doing 2 videos a week, not
yeah,
1 video a day or five
yeah,
videos. Like I just don't
totally.
have
And
the bandwidth. You know,
I
to keep
see.
it enjoyable, it's got to be in bites. You know.
Yeah, like to do something like what Nick English does with Stridewise. I mean, that's like he's sort of the guy who does it in this community in a sort of more like financial, like you could tell that he's got a strategy. He's got his sort of the way he produces him and Rose Anvil, I guess, are the two guys who kind of have a strategy around how they do things. And I think the rest of us are kind of just in it for the love in different ways, like we're I'm a teacher by career with the academic stuff that I do. So I love teaching and I love my photography. And so I combine those two things into like boots, and that's sort of what I present. You
Yeah.
as, with your leather craftsmanship and just your attention to detail there. It's super awesome that you've been able to share because honestly, your channel like is so valuable to people who are just like, I just want to learn and know more about like what this feels like from somebody's perspective like mine. And
Right.
that's what I like. I tune into all of the videos just because I've kind of like I love it. It just kind
Oh,
of
cool.
makes
Well,
me
I appreciate
happy.
that, man. Yeah,
I
definitely.
look
Well,
forward
I
to
have
them.
my notification set up for your channel as well. So
Ah, there you go. Likewise,
every
likewise.
time you have one pop up, I'm like, oh crap, what's he up to now?
I've
Let's
been I've been cranking a little bit more. I've been like all juiced up recently with the Japanese stuff. Like I've been
yeah.
I
I noticed. Yeah, your video on the what was it? The Thursday boots. Just
yeah, oh yeah, that got a lot of traction. Yeah.
yes,
It
that
was
was
interesting. I did
awesome.
that to some degree because, I was trying to figure out what Thursday Boots is trying to do. And I was also trying to figure out why Vince was so like ruffled online. And I was just the only thing I could think of that would ruffle somebody that bad is if they were threatened.
Hmm.
And I know that he's a little bit more reactive, and I know that he's a little bit more vocal, and he kind of shares and maybe overshares a little bit um,
Yeah,
on on whatever, and that's fine. Whatever. We all have our ways of being, and I'm not here to criticize or commend anybody. It's just that's who he is, and that's cool. Actually, I appreciate that about him. But I
yeah,
was like, but there's a lot of people who like that brand, who love Truman. I have had plenty of Truman boots. I've had 4 or 5 myself,
nice.
and I've moved on to other things. But like at the end of the day, I just love what he's doing, and it's a great entry point for somebody who's willing to pay 3, 4, 500 bucks for a pair of boots and have them feel overbuilt, and just they can do most of what almost anybody, including people in the workspace, need, honestly.
Very interesting.
And they're affordable and really cool leathers. And then I was like, okay, but like Thursday is interesting because they are like a cheaper entry point. But you can see how
Yeah,
there might be like, okay, for somebody who's maybe getting into it, we want to retain those folks. We want to like retain people with the Challenger, the Brawler, or the whatever. Yeah, there it is right there. Is that the Captain?
there's the captain. Yep.
Yeah, which is a very clean, like looking boot. It's
Yeah,
just kind of like a nice entry point, and it's welted, and it's got a solid leather, a solid design. It's not too flashy. It's like a perfect boot for somebody who's just like, I kind of want to throw a pair of boots on and not spend more than a couple $100, right? Like, and
right.
I was just like,
Exactly.
oh, they're now pricing boots kind of $300 to $400. Oh, they're using the same leathers that Vince is using with the Rambler leathers. Oh, they're like diving into shinky shells and stuff. Like, what are they doing here? And I think it's, they're looking at retaining their market, but at a higher price point. But it's a price point that Truman and a few others have lived in. Like maybe they're threatening Red Wing, maybe I don't know. But like to me, I feel like they have established a base. They're like one of the most known brands out there at this point, for those who are interested in this stuff.
Yeah.
And I just thought that Vince was kind of pissed off about it, like when that because it wasn't too far after they came out that Challenger. It turns out the Challenger seems like it's not really a great boot. Like it's
Oh,
like too pitched, is what I've heard. I like the people
boy.
I've said is the heel is so high and the footbed so low that it's like kind of out of balance, and your foot just slides like a pair of heels, like into the front of the boot. I have never owned a pair of Thursday boots ever. So
Okay.
people are like, oh, he's on Thursday's dime. Like he's totally rocking Thursday. I'm like, I've never even owned a pair of Thursday boots. Like, haven't put one even on my feet.
Right. Right.
But I'm kind of interested in what they're doing. Like I'm kind of somebody who's just interested in the space. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
and the last thing I want is for Truman to go away. I actually want them to thrive, but I do think that maybe I was wrong. It seems like he's maybe moving some production to Texas or something. Maybe he's thinking about different leathers. Maybe he was just pissed off that week. Like I don't know. So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that? Like I know you've had some additional thoughts and maybe some other insights there. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, Vince, I like him a lot because he's like a real man. He's an
yeah.
entrepreneur. He
He like runs a farm, doesn't he? Like, didn't he
Yeah,
like live on a farm or something? Like, basically everything comes from the farm. He's like one of those like farm
yeah,
to table literally guys. Like,
literally. Yeah, he's got
yeah.
cattle. He makes his own cheese.
Wow.
He's
Dang.
he's
I
in
don't make my own cheese.
right. Yeah, me neither. Not at all.
Nobody wants me making cheese. I
Right.
promise.
Exactly. But yeah, he's really interesting because he is not beholden to anybody. He is truly not owned by anybody. He is the captain of that ship, and
Yeah.
he makes all the decisions. And what I like about Truman, this is just my 50,000 foot overview, which is impossible to get to because you'd hit the firmament on the flat earth.
Flat Earth.
You never get that high.
Yeah, yeah, you're way too
But
high for flat.
yeah, but yeah, my overview is Vince is extremely adept at choosing leathers. He
Yeah,
could he could get, a swatch of leathers and just make extremely choice picks.
yeah,
And he knows that his boots are going to look fantastic. He
with
could
that.
look at some leather and tell whether his boots are going to look good or not with that
That's
leather.
that's a talent.
It's an extremely rare talent. I see some makers. It's like, oh well, I don't know. Let's get let's order a bunch of this hide and see how it turns out and
Yeah.
try to sell it. No, let's order a bunch of these hides. Vince is good at picking. I think that's where Truman truly excels is they're not running anything that would be considered crap at all.
No. Oh, it's
Like,
all great. Yeah, it's all fantastic stuff there. I mean, it's yeah.
right, right. Whereas Thursday, it's like if I was
Yeah.
to build a boot and I could choose any leather, like frankly, I'll just be brutally honest right now. Like
Yeah.
this leather from Lafargue, it's
Yeah.
not that awesome. Like
Yeah. It's mediocre.
yeah, it's highly industrialized leather.
Yeah.
There's nothing like particularly interesting about it. And that's just me getting snobby about it, right? Like
Oh yeah, totally. I think you're right. We're allowed to.
yeah, yeah, we're allowed. And so like I guess what I'm getting at is Lafargue, they're cranking out industrialized levels of leather, whereas Horween, Wicket and Craig, Galloon, they're cranking out stuff that
That
is
small batch.
it's small batch and it's boutique. And let me
Yeah.
see if I can grab a side of this. So this is uh this is Wicket and Craig olive
Yeah.
lacquer. And this is just so fine. Like it's
So
thick
nice.
and it's just beautiful. It's got a beautiful sheen.
Oh,
It's got really nice marbling. You can see the character coming through.
it's
And
beautiful.
yeah, it's special.
Yeah.
The smaller tanneries, just like smaller batch whiskeys and smaller batch
For
beers,
sure.
they're always better than Bud Light, and
Oh yeah.
similar to, Bud Light, I would say.
Which is why I think Truman truly will always be better. And, that's the comments. It's interesting having monitored the comments on that thread because it's definitely the most controversial comment. Like, I also sort of did that just to see if I could drive more people to my channel to some degree because I was like, I'm gonna see if I can get some of these Thursday folks over here. Like if I'm ever gonna actually do anything more with this, like grow the audience or whatever you want to call it, like I gotta do some of this stuff, and I'm not big on that, but like
Yeah,
but it was just kind of interesting. And I was like, I've been thinking about it, talking about it with a few other boot people. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. Like
yeah,
Vince's boots are way, way better than anything Thursday will ever make, like
right,
easily.
right. And
And
even
yeah,
looking at those Thursdays on the Tuscanello horse rump,
yeah,
they don't look as good as a Truman on
they
Tuscanello.
don't, they don't. Yeah, they just
Take the
don't.
same
I agree.
leather, and if
Same
you,
leather, same kind of general componentry and stuff. And you're like, yeah. Or like, the brawler, which I know Carl Morosky has sort of put out there. And I love the idea that it's out there. But when
yeah,
I look at it and I try to compare it to, like a 310 or like he even mentioned like his like inspirations were the Viberg 310 and the Creosote, I think nail shank, like those two, like because he has known Gabbard's like since the kind of get up, since they were like just get like Gabbard was like I forgot the name of his brand before it was MYG. MYG, that's what it used to be
that's
called.
right. Yeah,
And he the Gabbard, yeah, Gabbard's awesome. That guy's awesome.
yeah,
Like this dude, like not to divert too much, but like when I got his boots, he and I set up a time to chat. I didn't pay him any money for the boots. I paid this other guy, and he sat down. He ran through the history with me, talked about his wife and his kid, and we spent like an hour on the phone of his own time chatting just so he could get to know who owned his boots. And he was like super thankful for my videos. He's like, dude, you produce stuff like the fact that your music, you put like sort of this like gothic spin to it. He's like, I will be on your channel anytime you want. I was like, oh my God, thanks, man. Like that's kind of like a hero of mine. Like I'm not starstruck. I've been around the Seahawks and all these celebrities all these years, and I could care less.
yeah.
But when it's like Gabbard, I'm like, ooh, I'm excited about that. It's Dale, man. I'm kind of blushing right now. Like I'm excited about y'all, and
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
it's cool. It is
Likewise,
cool.
likewise. Yeah, it is very cool.
Yeah.
And
But
that's
yeah, like the Thursday Boots is this kind of anonymous-ish company, and they don't look the same. They don't have that they kind of look like a copy to me. And there's nothing wrong necessarily with it if it's not a direct copy. Like, some of the other companies have done some of the exact copies. That's sort of not great from my
that's one of
standpoint.
them.
And I've reviewed some of those brands like XBXS and Luostiet and some of those like literally facsimiles.
Yeah,
Cool that you can go for a boot like that at a way lower price, but I don't it's there's like borderline intellectual theft things there, and I struggle with that. I'm like, but Thursday is trying to do their own thing, but it feels like a diminished version of something that I would rather save up double or triple the money and just buy the thing that I want in the first place.
yeah, absolutely. It's a great entry level thing,
Yeah.
and I just listened to Jake Almost Vintage Style. He had Take O on a
Oh
boot.
yeah. I love take.
Yeah, they just posted their chat yesterday, and
Yeah.
we're excited to talk to you because it's like I got a lot of ideas in my head now. But they were saying in regards to Thursday, like the reason why Tick he doesn't actually splurge on higher end builds because he's trying to keep his content relatable for like the common man.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, and I commend that totally. Like part of the reason for my channel is I had a little bit of a different vision when I was getting started was, I kind of wanted to in a way act as like an intermediary or a almost like a therapist, like walking people through these scary purchases, these higher
Yeah. I love it. That's
dollar.
awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a
like hey,
great
look,
space to occupy, honestly, is to
yeah, it is.
destigmatize, demystify, and
Yeah,
serve as a bridge. Like this is why I have done what I've done. This is why I'm interested in this,
yes.
and give people a moment to process and figure out if they really want it.
Right, exactly it. Part of the reason why buying expensive boots for me wasn't so scary was because before I was into boots, I was into watches and
Oh yeah.
vintage
Oh, ooh, oh man, those is that what is that? Tag?
Speedmaster.
Oh, Speedmaster. Oh, Omega. I see it now. I see it. Yep. Those are great. Speedmasters, the Seamasters. I
Yeah,
had a brief splurge briefly with watches, but then I cut myself off because I was like, I can't, there's no way. Like, I can't be spending six, seven, 8,000. Like, my brother has
right.
a Jagger LeCouture, which I would love an old vintage LeCouture watch or, I like IWC a lot, Omega a lot. Like those are, I'm into that stuff too, but I'm like, nope, I'm gonna
Yeah,
shut that bad boy down. Like, no watches, no extra like sex, drugs, or fancy cars or rock and roll. Like, if I can keep it out of those areas, then I'm probably okay. If like my wife just gets annoyed by like the next boot box that shows up at my house, I'm like, at least it's not like something much sketchier than that. You
right.
know, not doing mine.
Absolutely. There's worse addictions, and watches
Yes.
is a far worse
For
addiction.
sure. Yes, but I love the fact, and honestly, your channel kind of inspired my own channel in some ways in terms of just being like my very first I think my very first video or one of my first two videos, certainly my first boot video was my Flame Panda video, which has like 10,000 views, and it's the Flame Panda Mako. It's crazily my very first heritage boot that I own was a freaking Flame Panda. Like I went straight to the top again, like I did with the
Yeah,
jacket. And then I've sort of been exploring other brands, which is why I think like the fact that I'm into these like Red Wing boots now is kind of hilarious because the quality is definitely at a different level, but you
right.
can appreciate things across a wide range of prices. Like I don't think it's like I like Parkhurst and things like that as well, but I also like exploring the higher end brands because they kind of fit my desire for perfection.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a whole thing. It's like and it's just so it's there's a big continuum, right? And you could go low, you could spend low and get low quality. But as we're seeing, and as you helped illuminate me when I was doing my not XBXS but Lowest Jet video, I heavily referenced yours because you were the
Oh
first one
yes, I
with me
love
with
that.
Lowest Jet.
That made me very happy. I was
Yeah,
like, whenever I see my name randomly pop up, I'm like, whoa, hey. Like
I'm like I'm like
so
welted wear. He's
yeah,
wearing
there I am.
he's hitting the ground running with some of these new makers. Like between them and there's a few other ones out there now. Crush on Retro.
Yeah, yeah, you got my this is an interesting brand. Here's the Crush on Retro. Look at this thing. This is their, I believe their 501 engineer. I remember that because of Levi's 501. This is sort of their more dress engineer. It's got that tapered top to it. A lot of people say that it seems to give homage to like the Lofgren, but it doesn't have a storm welt. It's got its actual last is a little bit more symmetric. It doesn't have quite the shape that the Lofgren last has. But for me, it gave me better space right here where I was getting hot spots before.
Okay.
And its instep is totally for me it was different. Like I could get my feet in very easily into this boot. I
Okay.
could literally just pop it in and then it holds my boot. Like it holds my feet just comfortably, perfectly.
Cool.
And it's a bison chrome excel leather. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure Horween calls it Montana, but I have not seen any other makeups. And one of the challenges I have with a lot of the makers coming out of China, as you mentioned, is like the exact desire to copy exactly. And there's like a different cultural thing there about copying. They don't seem as bothered with it. And Crush on Retro is interesting because if you look at their site now, like they're actually putting out some like Alden Indie clones and things like that again. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
why are you doing that? Like,
Right.
this is a much better strategy. Like, get a boot that's broadly like available,
Yeah.
take your own take on it, and it's not an exact copy. It's got a really cool, unique leather, and this is a leather I have not seen on
Yeah.
another engineer. And I got this for like 300 bucks, like 300 bucks. And it's got a V-bar, like what Lofgren would use. Look how clean that stitching is on the Goodyear welt. And,
Love it.
recessed stitching here, not much of a bump here at all or anything like that, but like, it's got a Cuban heel, like it's got a pretty nice shine to it. These are
Yeah.
full stacked leather. It's got a fairly nice cupping here, so like it holds my heel in pretty well. And it's rolling really. I mean, shoot, it's really clean. It doesn't have like the triple row or quadruple row stitches that some of the fancier brands like. It's just got the double row. So you can tell they're like trimming at some of the stuff here, but like for the average person, nobody's ever going to notice. And they're going to look at this thing and be like, that is one badass boot, man.
Yeah.
This
That is crazy.
300 bucks,
$300.
350 bucks, I think, 339 or something like that for this one.
That's just crazy. Yeah, there's some new makers out there in China and in India that are
Yep.
just selling just some insanely good, well-priced boots. And it's
Do you
like,
see those Craft and Glory looks like they're kind of copying the idea of the Wesco Mr. Lou. I just saw it recently. It's an engineer take two, like their engineer 2.0 or something like that. That boot in their russet, take a look at that boot in their russet leather. It's like I think they use because India has like, sort of a sacred place for cows, they use the water buffalo. Yeah, that
yeah,
guy.
I
Look at
literally
that
had
thing.
it open in
It
my,
looks a lot like the Wesco Mr. Lou to me, except bigger buckles. Like those
yeah,
buckles are huge. Look at those things.
right.
Uh, and yeah, so cool. But veg tan leather insole, veg tan heel and toe counter, stitch down construction if you want it for like a 20 buck upcharge. They kind of rip off the Vibram Landra sole, like it's got a Vibram Landra clone.
Yes.
Yeah, bad that guy right there. It's literally a clone of the Vibram Landra, but that's fine, whatever. That's they're saving on stuff. But
Right.
like it's a pretty sharp looking boot. Like,
Yes.
and I think they're selling it for 250 or two something.
Yeah,
Like,
it's 264.
yeah, that's ridiculous. That's bonkers.
It's
Like,
unreal.
that is bonkers. Like, and as long as they put a little of their own flavor into it, and it happens to look a bit like the with Mr. Lou or something, I'm like, that's fine. Like, as long as they're not trying to exactly facsimile it, it's totally fine. And even if they do, maybe there's a space for that for somebody who's just like, I can't spend 800 or 900 bucks. I'm not going to do it. I could spend 300 or less. Like the version of me who was not into shoes like 5 years ago would have said, I'm not paying 250 bucks is a lot of money. I'm not going to spend that kind of coin. And now
Right.
I'm off the deep end. But like back then, I would have been like, yeah, maybe that's a nice looking boot. Maybe I'd get that. Like I'd splurge for that. But little do they know that that's a pretty good value as long as it's built well enough to last. So
So true. So true.
it's
Yeah,
crazy.
I was looking at those, and in fact, I'm getting ready to send my foot tracings over to Craft and Glory later today.
Nice, nice.
Probably gonna get something in the works there.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, they're great people too. They
yeah,
reach,
they're awesome.
yeah, they're super communicative. They really enjoy their customers. My only complaint about them is I just saw that they made like a new reel, and they used me when I was like
Oh,
20
they
pounds
did. Yeah. Oh, you were.
heavier. I'm like,
You're like, that's not me anymore.
like,
Uh,
but then later in the clip they did show me a little bit closer to now. So I'm like, okay,
there
good.
you go. There you go. You're like, I don't want the chubby Dale on there. Like, that's not the
Right,
brand ambassador that I am now.
exactly. It's funny because Jake's like that too. Jake's like,
Oh yeah, he's done an amazing job. He looks totally different than he did 5 years ago or whatever it was.
yes, night and day. And it's funny too because I've just been talking to him. I've been talking to Nick at Stridewise, like
Yeah.
pick their brains because Nick he's probably down to, I don't know,
He's
1% body.
lean, man. He is a lean guy. And he's like a powerlifting guy. Like he
Yeah.
loves to powerlift. But
Yes.
he's like, I'm like that he doesn't need to lose any more weight. Let's just put it that way. I
Right.
love you, Nick. I don't know you personally, but we've communicated on messaging. His
Right.
his videos are awesome. Like, I mean, he's a huge reason this community exists. So he should get a shout out along with Jake, because like the
Absolutely.
professorial version of like that. Like just if you want
Right.
to take a deep dive, go subscribe to Dale, go subscribe to Jake. If you
Yeah.
want kind of like the intro to any topic and kind of starting to get your deep dive, go to Nick. Like that's sort of like a great starting point for most people.
Yeah, Nick is a fantastic, and yeah, it's funny because we're into boots, but then I'm like, hey, I trust you guys. Look, give me some tips because I thought I knew how to lose weight. Apparently, I don't. And Jake basically said, I'm hungry all the time, and I'm like, yeah, that's sounds about
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's rough. It's
And
rough.
yeah, and Nick was say it was funny. Nick was like, my mom texted me. She says I look like an Auschwitz victim. I'm like,
So he's at least aware of it.
aware. I'm like,
Uh,
I'm like, dude, now listen to me right now, because when I was in my best shape, I had a friend of mine tell me, "Hey, you're getting too skinny. You need to stop with this," and I did, and I just gained a bunch
yeah.
of weight again. And
Yeah,
so,
totally. Stick with what you like, like I love food myself. I'm never going to be a slim guy. I'm not trying, but I also don't want to gain weight. Like I'm kind of in a happy place, but it is
right,
funny like having gotten into some of the Japanese makers and their sizings all like their human size is smaller than yeah, me. So I'm at like the upper end of like I'm a quadruple XL in freaking Ironheart. Like I'm a XXXXL, I'm a SPL. Like they don't even have the same like naming system for my size. Like there's
right,
other brands
right.
like UES. I would love to try UES flannel, but their size 5 just doesn't quite work for me. A lot of them don't even make boots higher than size 10. Like it's you're
Oh,
kind of
really?
stuck. Yeah, I've noticed a bunch literally stop making last after essentially US 10.
Okay, that makes
So,
yeah,
which is good for somebody like you or us. You're actually in a sweet spot at 8.5. If you get into the Japanese stuff, you can find lots of used pairs from some like the used Japanese like eBay sites.
right.
Check those out because you can find some great deals on stuff over there.
Yeah,
So,
that is true. Yeah, I look at the Japanese eBay. There's a
yeah.
Filipino eBay too.
Oh wow, nice. Willie's. Willie seems like a cool dude. I watched your video with him and like while you were like there was a guy over there who was like friends with you who was like literally like interviewing and kind of talking to Willie and making boots and you
Yes.
were kind of on that was awesome. That was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, my buddy Brian went over there and he's like, "Hey, we're just gonna live stream it." It was chaos. Like I had to edit the crap out of it because it was like
Yeah.
an hour and a half of just
Oh
like
my gosh.
sometimes just random, like just being in different parts of the shop. I'm like, how I got to make this thing flow. But
Yeah.
it was cool because Willie had his apprentice there, and it was so funny because Willie brought his apprentice out, and the kid's like not wanting to look at the camera.
Like it's okay, man. It's all right.
It's all right. It's all right. We just want to see what you're up to. That's all.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, it's too funny. It's cute.
Yeah.
All kinds of funny cultural things that kind of factor in, which is interesting, especially like Philippine, Indonesian. There's some really interesting cultural things that you have to kind of think about. Like I was dealing with some issues around like just cultural things between there was a guy who I was working with who sort of is based out of Trinidad and Tobago. You probably know Kenwin, a great guy from Crew Nonpareil and he and like I think Caswell, there's a few guys who literally have essentially brands with manufacturing sites all over the world. Like, they'll have stuff in the US, stuff in China, stuff in wherever, Spain, and they have to kind of negotiate different like deals and sort of approaches with different people because they can rub people the wrong way real fast. It's kind of interesting. So,
Very true. Yeah, I was actually kind of shocked when I found out most of the Indonesians over there are Muslim. I didn't realize that.
yep. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I had no idea that sometimes I see they do a post like it's Ramadan, we're not going to be working very hard this month, like go eat on us, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're going to be fasting all month,
Yes.
so
Yes.
don't expect your boots.
Don't go hypoglycemic on me while you're making my boots. We don't want that.
Exactly, exactly, and yeah, the Philippines, that's they're interesting too, but yeah, Willie, I like him because he actually has really good style. I actually have three engineers that I'm working with him on.
Whoa, I haven't worked with him yet. I don't know Willie at all. Like he's just one brand I've been observing and enjoying, but I haven't connected with him at all.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I have a few pairs that Mario actually gifted me.
Wow.
Yeah, these are Navy Chrome XL.
Oh, those are slick as heck. Look at how they're rolling too. Man.
Oh yeah,
Woo. Chrome
nuts.
Excel, it takes a lot of thought to make Chrome Excel look like that.
Right, it does.
Once you wear it, like you're breaking it in, it looks amazing.
Yeah,
But Chrome Excel can go the wrong way or it can go the right way, and that's definitely the right way.
yeah, that's the right way you want the Chrome XL to go.
Yeah,
Let's see, there's another pair. Oh, here they are. The olive horse rump roofer boots.
those are slick. Look at that.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I sent Willie. I just bought some hides and sent them to him. See, I have one of them here. Tuscanello.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Or
it's interesting. So Tusk, that version, I don't know if it's the lighting or not, but that looks like almost like orangish. It's got yellow and orange undertones, and I've seen other Toscanello almost look like taupe, like gray. And I don't know if like Toscanello really refers to all one color or if it's like there's lots of Toscanellos.
right. Actually, you know what? I think I might have been wrong. This might be macchiato.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah,
It's
that looks like Toscanello to me, like that one right
yeah.
there.
Yeah, and my Trumans that were in Tuscanello that I sent to I sold to my buddy John Yorkin,
Yeah,
also on Instagram. It was a lighter version of this. It wasn't quite as dark.
totally. As
So
dark. Those really look nice though.
yeah, they're awesome. But yeah, I think my favorite Mariam horsebutt color is macchiato because it's just
It's
got that.
beautiful. I haven't seen too many people put that on boot. I haven't seen that many makeups, at least in my browsing, in that's a beautiful leather. Like that's
Yeah,
lovely.
it's so cool. And I did another one. Oh, sorry, I have more leather sides than boots.
Oh yeah, man. Oh, look at that. So like a olive greenish or brown.
Yeah, this is an olive green horse rump.
Wow, look at that. Look at that character on there too. Ooh.
Yes,
Oh, has that got shell in it? Yes, it does.
there's the shell.
Yes, it does. Oh, that is slick as heck.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man. There it
and
is.
you could see why they couldn't use this for shell, right?
Yep. It was too yeah,
It's
totally.
too
Got that.
inconsistent.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're like, what are we gonna do with it? We'll just keep it as horse rump.
Yep, just keep
And
it
there
as
it is.
but and so
Totally.
there you go.
Oh, that is beautiful leather.
I
I
know.
love the fact that you have this additional layer of knowledge of actually having to leather craft and leather work and kind of understand it, which
Yeah,
adds a whole different level.
right. It gives you it fills in a lot of the gaps. You know what I mean? Because
For
it's
sure.
it's easy to look at a boot and question and pontificate like what's going on with it. But then when you
Yeah.
get the actual side, and then when you've worked with, especially when you've worked with multiple iterations of the same leather, you really
Yeah.
get, like a good conceptualization of like what's going on with it, right? Because
Yeah.
each side is so different, because each animal is so different.
It's different. Yeah. They all go through the same, essentially the similar tanning process, but the starting point might be very different. Like that animal might be really well fed and the next one maybe not as well fed, or maybe that one was grown in this area and this one was grown in some
Yeah,
other farm or something. They're going to be totally different hides.
right.
So,
And it also depends on the time of year that the meat is harvested and the
oh,
skin is
wow.
harvested. So
Yeah.
a
Oh,
winter
wow.
weight is
Didn't even
so
think about
thick.
that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. The winter weights are just super thick, whereas summer weights
Are lighter.
thin. Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly.
It's almost
And
like a
so it,
hibernating bear or something. You gotta like figure out when you're when you're gonna tap that bear.
exactly.
The
I love it. I love it.
I'm all about my analogies. I have to make all this medical knowledge like relevant to people in front of me, and I can't be talking about. I was just talking to on my podcast before I chatted with you about microsurgical tendon debridements, and most people are like, "What? What is that? I don't know what that is." And I'm like, "It's when you take and clean up the tendon. You take the little rope and you rotor-root it, and you get all the gunk out of it, and that's a
it,
microsurgical tendon debridement. But you can call it what you want to call it and use all your fancy Latin, or you could just use plain English and you probably get there. So,
right.
um,
Wow. So you do those procedures?
oh yeah, yeah, I do a lot of procedures that take unhealthy tendons, like say somebody has a bad Achilles tendon that has not healed up with like physical therapy and they're like can't get back to their activity. I can
Yeah.
go in with this device that has a needle that has high frequency ultrasound radiating from it, and then a flush system like a shop vac built in. And I can go in and I use an ultrasound to look, and I use this device to basically go to the unhealthy parts of the tendon and clean it out, like get rid of it. And then it heals up over time. Yeah, it's like doing surgery with a needle.
And you don't think you could do leather work?
Not yet. The closest I've gotten to leatherwork, I will say, part of my initial journey, I brought a couple of these because I figured I'd throw these up. Um, this is a vintage pair of Daks in a, like, I think some sort of cowhide from probably about 50 years ago. And I got into leather restoration because I was like, man, I can get these cheap pairs of leather. This is the classic one. This is vintage Florsheim, long way or just a standard plain toe blucher. Um, and the things that I noticed, I picked up this pair off of eBay for 20 bucks.
Wow.
And I basically it's got the five nail imperial line with this old school heel that I'll just take off and put a new heel on. But if I sand this down and refinish it with a high grit, it'll look pretty darn good. And then now that I like contrast stitching has gotten good, I actually I start with saddle soap and I kind of clean the boot off, and it gets rid of some of the ink off of the stitching. So you get this nice contrast stitch look. And then I just keep working the leather with the different products I do until I get something that looks close to new. And this
Wow.
is a 50-year-old pair of Florsheim, Imperial shoes that are forever. And this Dax, like this is a long wing blucher that like with a little bit of TLC, you can bring a shoe literally back to life. And this is like a great way if people are like, hey, I don't really want to spend a ton of money, but I'm into like nice shoes. The vintage market is great. Plus, you get to learn, I mean, not your depth of level and other knowledge, but at least like restoring leather and kind of getting it back to life. I've really had some fun learning about that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a pair. I'll grab these real quick.
Yeah.
You might have seen them before. A pair of old World War II tankers.
Oh, yes, I did see that vid. That is so cool.
Yeah, and these definitely
That's
probably need a good
trippy, man. Well, look at that thing. Wow.
these definitely probably need a good restoring because
Yeah.
this leather outsole, like if you walked in this, it'd
It'll
probably
crumble.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so dry and old that it would
Yeah.
probably just I don't know because I haven't tested it.
Tried it. Yeah.
Like this is like a piece of history. I don't want to.
Oh yeah. It's like something you put on a mantle or something. It's just like a boot nerd would put that sucker on their mantle and
Right.
just enjoy it. But yeah, like
Absolutely.
I love taking something like that and just bringing it back to life. Like I can't do the soles, but I can do the uppers. And
Okay.
I just do this progressive hydration. Like I start with a Fibing saddle soap, which just costs like $5 on Amazon. I basically soap the whole thing up. And what's the nice thing about that is it's a soap, but it's got like the equivalent of like aloe that we use for us. And it kind of
Okay.
starts the rehydration and reconditioning process. So if you have a really old leather that you don't want to like start to have crack and fleck, you
Yeah.
start with that saddle soap, and then you can start to use your cleaner and conditioner products from whichever brand you like. And little by little, if you give it time, and the key is like the time thing. If you're not patient, then it's gonna look like a hot mess. But if you take it and put it aside, come back to it a few days later, brush it, little by little, that leather will start to wake back up, which I love. Uh,
Interesting.
so I've
That
been sniffing around. I haven't found too many yet, but I've been sniffing around for like really vintage engineers to see if I could find one that like suited my aesthetic that I could bring back to life because I think that would be awesome.
that would be really cool. And yeah, what you're describing is I just talked to my buddy Eli about this or no, I talked about it in my recent Truman video, the
Yeah.
brown loggers that real wispy rough out.
Yeah.
That real hairy rough out. And what's interesting about that is it shows you kind of how leather is comprised. It's like Phil at Ashland Leather says, it's spaghetti, and it's tightly interwoven fibers. And if it would make sense if you could just rehydrate it slowly, you might be
Yes.
able to build it back up to where it's not going to damage anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas, in a state like this,
It'd
definitely,
be tough.
it's gonna start cracking. But even the upper though is still supple.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell. It almost still has a little shine to it and everything. It's clearly got something in there that's keeping it
Yeah,
alive. Yeah, I'm
right.
sure there's parts of it that feel so stiff and brittle that you just don't want to mess with it too much.
Yeah, it's just that outsole. It's
Yeah,
just
just the outsole.
I see
Yeah.
cracks along it, and
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
probably after a resole would be
oh,
perfect.
yeah.
But
You send that thing to Cobbler Sonny and see what he can do with it.
exactly. Funny, actually, he moved. I'm heartbroken. He moved out to California.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's working for Vibram now.
Oh, wow. I know he
Yeah,
was like doing his own like shoe line for a little bit. He's like a pretty entrepreneurial guy from what I could tell. Like,
yeah,
so
he is.
he's not doing cobbling anniemore. He's working for Vibram.
Yeah, he's a Vibram employee. He's
Wow. Okay.
it's official now.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Sonny, you were awesome, man.
Right.
Uh, I
He's
tend to use Wyatt and Dad and Cobbler Tobias for a lot of my big resoles, and I've tried to
okay.
connect with Jim McFarland because I know his work is amazing, but I just haven't been able to effectively do it. I think he's just super busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a few people, and then I have a local guy here in Seattle to do like sole guards and pads and things if I want to do something quick. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I have a couple resources, and it's fun. Just kind of like you say, this hobby is fun because the deeper you dive the more you get to know this really cool community around like around leather, around building, around all these different things that are just so there's just so much to it and there's
Yeah.
just so much depth here that
Right.
you can, like let alone like getting into like I would love to learn how to make a shoe, but I actually have had two bespoke pairs made locally here in Seattle where I'd go and watch the process happen. It was so cool. There's a
Whoa.
guy who was a RAB bespoke, Bob Batista. He's now actually hung it up because it was hard work and he's just like, I just don't know if it's sustainable. But he
Yeah.
built probably about 100 or 200 pairs of boots and shoes over the years. He was in the World Championships a couple years ago. He submitted when they made I think it was a Balmoral boot. He made one of those and he made me two pairs and what I loved about his style was this melding of rugged and classic. Like the shoes look like rugged shoes. Got a split toe derby and a plain toe blucher. One of them was in a JF and J Baker black hatch grain Russian leather. Those super cool. And they are just like literally meeting him for the first time at work, him measuring my feet, taking all these measurements, taking these marks, then he bought a last from I forgot what the nut company is in the UK, but then he took it and he like would take cork and kind of remold it and then he'd shave it off and then he'd make a trial pair, he'd fit it. I would kind of be like, okay, there's the hot spot here, there's a hot spot here, there's like a little extra space here, and he would like take notes and he would recraft that same mold, the last, and then he would modify it. And then we got to like essentially a perfect pair for my foot. And just watching and getting to observe that process and see him doing the literally hand done braided Norwegian welt on one of my boots, I was like, oh, this is crazy, man. Like the effort that actually goes into that, like,
Yeah.
is bonkers. I can see why it takes like a year or two to like make these things because it's a lot of work. And
Absolutely. Dang. That's
yeah, so
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
Maybe
Lovely.
somewhere. This is a hatch green. This is iron
Iron
boots.
boots? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they're FLT. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
What do you think? That
Exactly.
looks nice, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't
Very.
seen you talk about this, but I haven't seen you talk about them that much, I don't think. I feel
Yeah.
like,
I did a video review of these a couple years ago
oh
now,
wow.
and
Yeah.
yeah, these are actually for sale on my website right now. So
Nice. Sell them. Yeah, they're great. Iron boots is awesome.
yeah,
Whoever has a size 8 or 8.5, that's the ticket right there.
yeah, I think these are a 9E,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, they're awesome though. I've probably only worn them a couple of times just because you know
Yeah.
what it is. It's the last like it's
Yeah.
just too dressy for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I could see that. That's why I was surprised that you even had it because it feels like it's a little too narrow. It's a little too almondy.
yeah,
It's just a little like it doesn't fit your sort of style as much. I
right,
mean, even for me, it's starting to get on the dressy side for something that I would like even.
right,
So, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's a beautiful shoe, but
Oh yeah.
it's just not for for my taste. It's just a little on the narrow on the
Yeah.
refined side, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not very refined of a gentleman.
Speaking of refined, I was curious. Oh, look at that. Oh,
That's more my speed. I like
yes, that is a beast. Is that Renav?
Yeah, Renab.
Yeah, yeah, I love Ray. He was one of my first Indonesian guys that I connected with.
Okay.
Love him. He's a really good maker.
Yes. Yes,
And
I really like him a lot.
one question I had for you, just speaking to that sort of where we all fit in that sort of continuum between dress and, sort of more like work purpose footwear is when I look at Vibram, or not Vibram, Viberg, when I look
Yeah.
at Viberg, and Viberg has clearly sort of moved more and more towards that dressy aesthetic. Like they like the way they construct, the insanely high stitch density that they do now on their like stitch down welts. Like that's just one example.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can barely see the stitching anymore. That's actually really nice. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like that stuff. Like, but some people get annoyed because they're like, man, they're trimming their heels down so tight now that like they like that little bit more rugged vibe. I was curious where you fell on Viberg in terms of like how they've been seemingly transitioning more towards like this elevated dressy-ish, but not fully dressy aesthetic. What are your thoughts on that? I was curious about that.
Yeah, I noticed that. Brett Viberg, he's very much an artist as well.
Yeah.
I think what he's doing is he's tapping into the refined areas. You know, he's
Yeah.
trying to make the best some of the best boots in the world.
Yeah.
And yes, I have noticed this evolution getting away from the traditional service boot
Yep. That
style.
Pac Northwest service boot kind of rugged aesthetic, they're kind of moving towards almost dress boots, like, but
Right.
with a bit of rugged DNA. So that's
Yeah,
where I feel like.
definitely. I feel like I know that Brett Viberg he's always got his eye on John Lobb and
Mhm.
inspired by John Lobb. And so that
Interesting.
might sort of explain why he's, you know,
Getting in that direction.
yeah, he's very much an artist. He's very much trying to
Yeah.
capture a certain spirit or a certain vision, and I think that's just the way he's trying to go. Because what is it? Like Division Road, in my opinion, they had some of the best Viberg makeups.
Oh yeah, those were awesome. They were in Seattle until they moved out to the wherever Virginia. They were literally like a mile from me. Like it's
Wow.
crazy. It
That's
was
awesome.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, so cool.
Dang. And in my opinion, those were just some of the best Viberg makeups
Yeah.
that
Oh
were
yeah.
coming out because they harken to my exact style.
Yeah.
But
Love it.
Brett Viberg, he has just a different vision, and he
Mhm.
didn't want to keep making, all the white Pacific Northwest Knicks style boot. That wasn't his vision. He wanted to get more into the calf. You know,
Yeah.
when you look in at the current makeups that they're releasing, it's a lot of these obscure like French uh
Yeah.
calf skins. You
Yeah,
know,
I've noticed that. They're like even making Oxfords and stuff. I'm like, whoa, what are we doing here? That's interesting.
yeah,
Like, I mean, his model clearly has success in the marketplace, but it is interesting that I feel like there's been this shift where
yeah,
the whites and the nicks are kind of moving into the space that Viberg used to occupy for some of their business. Like, they
yeah,
definitely keep their, and I feel like JK and Franks and Wesco to some degree kind of stay in this kind of more rugged style. Whites and Nicks have definitely like catering to the Japanese market. Certainly Whites does and Viberg does, but like even Nicks, like you can see that their work is more precise than it was a few years ago. Nicks
right,
came out with that Brandle line, which is sort of like their version of dress boot. And it
yeah,
almost is like they are now moving into the space that Viberg once occupied.
right, absolutely. Yeah, these are Nicks, and I mean
Yeah,
the
those are good.
Nobleman's Apothecary
Yeah,
collab
yeah,
swashbuckler,
those are nice. Those are
and
really nice.
they're absolutely amazing. You know,
Oh,
the
clean.
workmanship, it's not clunky at all. I could point out some flaws on the Westco, you know,
Yeah,
but not on these Knicks.
yeah,
So
they're clean.
yeah,
Do you like the Pac Northwest last? Do you feel comfortable with the like 55 and the Archies and all those guys, like with a lot of arch support?
yes, I love those. I love the art
Yeah,
support. It's kind of intrusive sometimes, so I don't always opt for it.
yeah, totally. It's definitely an acquired taste, I would think.
It is, yeah, but I do love it.
Yeah,
And
they're cool.
yeah, like what you're saying, it's interesting to watch these different brands as they evolve. And yeah, that's just the sense that I get is Brett Viber, he's trying to take it into more of a
More of that dress aesthetic.
yeah, dress realm, try to get away from the because and even the service boots that he was running, he was going for very plainly styled service boots for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah,
They
like it was like brown chrome XL, blank.
yeah,
Like almost Thursday, but with chrome, like you're not
Yeah,
that far off from just kind of your bread and butter boot to like, oh wow, you're using Merriam split horse rump with, like funky stuff, which is cool. I've liked that about Viberg because they also like they're like the elevated version of Truman in terms of like having lots of different like leathers. But
yeah,
it is almost taking the brand and redefining it in this different, like I said, some of the Japanese vibes I think I'm getting from them. Although
yeah.
it's interesting, I've actually getting into the Japanese makers, I've gotten less focused on things like stitch density. I've gotten far more interested in lasts.
Mm,
Like one thing that
okay.
I've really appreciated is like, yeah, like this guy here, this Zero's boot. The last is just like perfection. This is their low round last. And
Wow.
you can see it's got this almost Munson-esque vibe. It's
Yes.
got that kind of like sort of rounded square, but then it actually tapers off more, which gives you a lot of good space here.
Yeah.
And then it's got that little bit of a toe bump, but not too much. So it kind of straddles the line. It's got a little bit of this spring on it, but not like 310 spring, but like a little bit of spring. And it's
Subtle.
just these subtle things. But if you look at the stitch density, it's like, whatever, like standard, very clean, very clean. Like you
Very
don't
cool.
see a flaw at all, like ever.
No.
But
Yeah.
it's not like 100,000 stitches per inch. It's like, five or six, seven, maybe six-ish. So
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know,
I'd say
it's
that's probably
almost like the precision of the work done rather than the pure number of like
right. Exactly.
you know?
Exactly it. I'm trying to, yeah, because it's interesting because yeah, normally when I stitch my bags, I'm using one
Oh
of these.
yeah,
This is a
for
so this is
that.
a six. It's a six. So six stitches per inch, basic.
Ah, that's how you do it. Interesting. I
Um,
was always curious.
yeah, yeah, and so like sometimes I'll take them and I'll line them up with
Yeah.
like different welts, and I could kind of see because I have. Let me grab a couple other ones because so this is a five millimeter, and so yeah, you could just kind of see. And then what's this? This is a. I almost never use this one. This is probably what they're using on the Viber
Yeah. Yeah,
lately.
yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, it looks like that. So basically,
Yeah.
this this is most stitched down work boots. It's going to
It's
be
in that spacing.
yeah
Oh
versus
yeah, so that's a little tighter there. You can see the
yeah.
difference.
This is way tighter. So
Wow.
yeah, just to,
Huh.
just to put that into perspective there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's all
it's
the stuff that I could go down a rabbit hole with that stuff too. Yeah.
right, absolutely. Yeah, you could see how this would line up to that.
Yep. Yep,
And
yep. Perfect.
yeah, so it's just one of those things. And the other thing about SPI is it's decorative. It looks very good when it's a tight SPI, but actually it
Yeah.
doesn't it actually if it's too high of an SPI, it could actually compromise the leather.
Yeah, when you're trying to relast it or you might need to redo the welt entirely or like wouldn't it's almost like shredding the leather, like if you put too much in there.
Right, right. It's kind of like how they say, "Oh, you want to put 15 locks on your door, you're actually weakening your door."
For sure. Yeah, door's easier to kick through if you have too many things, right? Yeah,
Right, right, exactly. So actually a higher
those flat earthers like a lot of locks on their door.
yes, they do. And they like a lot of tinfoil in their
They're
hat.
also really into Viberg. It's weird. I don't know.
Right.
No, I'm just
What
messing.
do they
Sorry.
know? What do they know that we don't know?
No, what they don't know won't hurt them.
Yeah, speaking of Japan, I want to go to Japan eventually and just tour
Yeah.
around and
Oh yeah, me too. The
yeah.
exchange rate is really good. What I've heard, because I also live about a mile from Blue Owl Workshop, which is like my denim slash Japanese mecca. Like they have some cool
Wow.
stuff there. They got Lofgren makeups, they got Viberg, they got Unmarked, they have obviously all the different denim. Like they have, all the Momotaros and Oni and everything. And they know Japan. The guy who started it literally spends a good chunk of his year visiting Japan. And he's like,
Wow.
go in the next year and a half to two because the US dollar's strength there is really strong. So once you go there, it costs whatever it costs to fly there, but once you're there, your dollar goes a really long way. Um,
Really?
and
Okay.
so
That's
just
interesting.
it's a nice time to go, basically, if you can make it over there.
Yeah, definitely. Has he mentioned anything when he's flying to Japan, because of the flat Earth?
Yeah, yeah, it's a bumpy ride, but it's at least a straight shot.
Right. At least it's straight. My
You
favorite.
got this jet stream, like what is that created by? It's, the firmament must create that, I guess.
Well, it's because the flat Earth is a lot bigger than what they
Ah,
believe. There's not seven continents. There's probably more like 30 continents. We just don't know they
we
exist.
just don't know they exist. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
we're not
they're
allowed
on
to count.
different parts of the flat, thing. Um, there's a movie from the 90s called Dark City. It stars Kiefer Sutherland and
Okay.
Rupert, I forget what his name is, Rupert something or the other, but it's kind of this gothic noir movie. But the idea is that you reach this limit of like the city and you can't leave it. And it turns out that the city is like literally on a little flat disc, and like there's all these other flat discs. Like it's kind of a trippy, definitely a on the flat Earth watch list on Netflix for sure.
Okay, awesome. I will watch that for sure because
It's good for other reasons too.
yeah, because
It's
I'm
good.
interested in the truth.
Yeah, yes.
Unlike those round earthers out there.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. Not
But my favorite thing that I just heard recently is flat earthers' argument is that if the earth were round, airplanes would have to fly with their nose down like this.
Oh my God.
So,
Oh boy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's why. Yep,
yeah,
yep.
so next time you're
They're physics majors too while they're at it. That's
right.
great.
Next
Great.
time you're at Blue Owl Workshop, ask the guy that when he flies to Japan to tell him next time watch his drink.
Yes. Oh yeah.
If the liquid in
It's
the drink
tipping, right?
tilted,
Yeah. And we know we're in a flat Earth. If it's a little tipped, it's like in Jurassic Park when the dinosaurs come in and the water ripples, that's a big old dinosaur. It's not just a raptor.
right?
That's a biggie. That's the tell right there. Is the drink is tipped, we know we're on a flat Earth. We
Exactly.
know that the that T-Rex is coming our way.
Yeah, the argument is if you hold up your glass and you see that the water is level, that means
Oh
the
my
plane
gosh.
is level. That means it's not pointing its nose down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're good. And we're on a round Earth then.
I'm
Yeah.
always
Oh,
I'm always learning
exactly.
new things about the flat. It's wonderful.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Bro, it's a brave new world we're living in.
Right, absolutely. Well, I was going to ask you, where did you get the idea for to name your channel Welted Wear? I really like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I started the channel and I started my YouTube about, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago ish. And
Yeah,
at the time, right around the time I was kind of dealing with the foot issues and stuff. And my goal was to review new brands and new shoes. At the time, it was more shoes than boots. And I initially wanted to get something catchy, something with like some alliteration. So like it rolls off the tongue, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum. So I started with my first name on YouTube or on Instagram was the new shoe review, the new shoe review. So it kind of like it sticks with you a little bit. But
yeah,
then I just felt like that was a little too dumb. Like I just like didn't feel like that had any like real thought behind it other than yeah, I'm reviewing a new shoe, but that could be like a Nike or a pair of Vans or whatever. Like that doesn't really get to what I'm actually interested in. And so, because I started getting into welted boots and pretty much everything I own now is welted.
yeah.
Everything I own is welted actually. That and then there's a lot of variation there. Like, okay, that's sort of kind of there's a lot of opportunities to explore dress shoes or boots or different types of welts or different kind of stitched constructions that sort of got there. And then where like I thought, well, like where like you think where I gotta put where my stuff, like I'm gonna put a wear my shirt or my boots or whatever, that WEAR, but where WARE is like goods and services. And so I thought, okay, welted wear that kind of has that same kind of like but like easier to remember. And yeah, and then that's sort of how it came to be. And it kind of stuck, and nobody else was really using that sort of name online, like something like that. It was kind of its own thing. And I've
Okay.
debated whether or not to change it, but to broaden, because like I say, like I think all of us in some ways are really into well-made things. Like
Yeah.
it could be watches, it could be boots, it could be high-end audio equipment, it could be cars, it could be whatever it needs to be. For me, cameras. And ultimately, I felt like I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to stay in this lane because I really enjoy it. And if I try to over diversify, I see some other channels where people are like into the rugged lifestyle or that kind of heritage lifestyle, but then are reviewing like cigars. And I know you do a little bit with knives and stuff like Carl Morosky does a lot of that stuff. I don't
Yeah,
really need to reproduce what they're doing. Like I just don't.
right.
And so what I'm trying to do is like, okay, I can use my photographic background. So my photos are usually my videos are very usually well lit or like lit with some thought. Some of them have me in them, most of them don't, where I'm just kind of showing the boots. And it's like almost like a study of the boot while I'm talking and giving a little like synopsis of the brand, a synopsis of the boot, some thoughts behind like what it might work. But sometimes like people are like, why don't you like put your boots on and show videos of you wearing your boots out there? I'm like, well, one, I'm just doing this for fun. It's kind of a pain in the ass to keep changing your setups.
Yeah.
Two, like I'm trying to stay in this lane. And three, go to my Instagram if you want to see what the boots look like on my feet. I do actually wear my boots. Yeah, I have a lot of them, but I wear all of them. And
Right.
it sort of separates the audience a little like, oh, if I want to look at the boots, I'll go to picture of them on his feet, I'll go to YouTube. If I want to, or I'll go to Instagram. If I want to get a video synopsis and stuff, I'll go to YouTube and do that. So that's sort of how I've looked
Yeah,
at it.
definitely. And I really think it's a good brand. Welted Wear. I really like the
Thank
name
you.
of that. It's,
Appreciate it.
kind of like with Nick with Stridewise, he really
Yeah,
named nailed
perfect.
it.
Yeah.
It kind of encapsulates what you're trying to do. Welted, because yeah, new shoe review. I mean,
That's
that's
too broad.
it's broad, it's too open. It's
Yeah.
oh, I'm thinking New Balance. I wouldn't
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you're thinking not the stuff we're interested in.
right, right. But when I see you welted, I
You're
already
like,
know
oh,
that, okay, the fact that you know what a welt is.
yes. And most
already-
people don't. It does limit your audience, but I'm not trying to like get a million followers. I don't give a crap about that. Like I want to curate and find a community that we can have a conversation, that I have a place in that community. I like there's a part of me as a physician and so there's a part of whatever I am that likes to be a little bit expert, I think. I'm not
Yeah,
trying to be an influencer. I'm trying to give people my opinion that hopefully they're interested enough to listen in
yeah,
on. And I think we probably all feel that way if we're doing this. Like we want to share, but we
yeah.
also, I think, all love the community. And honestly, I get so much more value from my footwear if I'm talking to other people about it, if I'm sharing opinions, if I'm talking to some maker about this choice or that choice, if I'm
Mm,
just connecting with the community. And this is my way of doing it.
absolutely. And honestly, that's one of the things that kept me coming back was just like connecting with the makers. It's like, whoa, I'm
Sure.
talking to the people that make this.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. Like it's so cool.
Like,
Like I remember like sitting there talking to Pang and he said spouting all this like from Flame Panda and he's like all this like philosophical stuff. I'm like, this is kind of tripping my mind. And then I'm hopping over and I'm having a conversation with Antonio Macariello and he's showing me like some photo of like this beer that he's making and
yeah,
like I'm like, wow, all right. And then, my trippiest one though was I was messaging with this guy, a brand that apparently has disappeared. If you remember Monroe Heritage,
yeah.
they kind of made a splash for a little while. And I just went on their Instagram yesterday. They have no more posts up. So I think they have closed shop. They're
Interesting. Okay.
just sad, but it is what it is. They had a few thousand, 12, 15,000 followers. They had a brick and mortar thing, but if you go to their website now, there's no posts.
Oh,
And I actually messaged them about 6 months ago because I hadn't seen any posts since the end of 2023.
yeah,
And it's basically, I think they've decided it wasn't working for them. Yep, gone,
yeah.
right? That's sad. And they had,
That sucks.
12,000 things. And so,
Wow.
but when they were alive and awake, I was reaching out to them because Robert Kersey, EDH, what's his name? Yeah, EDC, I forgot what his name is, but
Yeah.
he's an active guy and he reached out to me. He's like, you should really check out Monroe Heritage. And at that time, I was sort of looking at, Onderhood and Renav and a couple guys like that. And they're like, well, Monroe was doing things at the time that had like little lower end leathers and they were starting to diversify, but he's like, their quality is really good. So
Oh,
I'm reaching out to this guy. His name is Iwan. He was the guy who started Monroe. And he and I are messaging, but my all he knows me is by Welted Wear. And so in the middle of the conversation, he's like, well, I need to, if we're going to do this order, I should get your actual information. So I was like, sure, here's my name. And he's like, wait a second, are you the Ashwin who used to write about Leica cameras? And I'm like,
oh,
yeah, that's me. And he was like, holy crap, I used to watch because about 10 years ago, I used to do a lot of actually articles on Leica cameras, Leica being German-made manual focus cameras that are very fancy and just kind of they're very much a niche market in the camera market. But I've gotten to know some really cool people along the way. Like I've chatted with like Jeff Garland from Curb Your Enthusiasm, the
Oh,
Seal, the musician Seal, and I from back in the 90s. He's a good friend of mine. Like he and I like have
really?
met, chatted. Yeah, we're close. And
Wow. What?
yeah, so Seal and I are buddies, and it's because of this hobby. I was writing articles, and he was in the comment section at times, and I was like, "Is that Seal?" And then we started a conversation. It turned into like FaceTime messaging, and then it turned into video FaceTiming. He sung like Christmas carols to like my family during the holidays, like just on video FaceTime. He sung a happy birthday for my wife's 40th birthday, like on like she was coming down. I put the phone on and he's in there with his guitar singing happy birthday to us.
What?
And it's
That's
because of
awesome.
this, it was because of the photography. And so
Wow.
that hobby opened up those doors in those social circles for me. And like Nikki Six from Motley Crue once connected with me, like that, those guys, like, because he was into cameras. And so for me, the fact that this guy who is making shoes kind of in a garage in Bandung, Indonesia,
Yeah.
happens to know my photography because he read my articles 10 years ago that got him into Leica cameras. And
Yeah.
so I have a few posts of his with I put a Leica camera and his boots up and he was like losing his mind because he's like, "Oh my God, these are such cool photos." And like like just of his boots with the Leica camera taken by me, like just kind of like a bit of a mind fuck in a cool way. And and I've that kind of like was this funky like collision of worlds for me of like this guy
Yeah.
in Bandung, Indonesia has been reading my Leica articles from 10 years ago and he's into photography because he likes well-made things. He likes
Right.
well-made things enough to be a bootmaker and now he's like getting into photography and we all have this intersectionality, but at the same time, like I think in order for something to be successful, you have to have an audience that it caters to. And like I'm just gonna try to grow that audience and
Absolutely.
or the
Yeah.
connections. Sort of how
You're doing a great job. It's funny too, the intersectionality that you're talking about, because my brother, he's big into photography. He's
Oh,
also
cool.
big in the music scene as well.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, and he was saying that he kept telling me as I was getting into leather, he's like, "Oh yeah, the dude's from Thrice, the drummer from Thrice makes wallets or something," and he
Really?
had a handmade wallet from the
Cool.
one of the guys from Thrice.
Nice. Go
And,
figure.
yeah, it's just so funny. He also had. Are you familiar with the band They Used?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Like yeah, totally.
My brother has a mask that
Oh,
McCracken would put on to go to to Burger King in. So he would like just go to Burger King, but he
with this mask.
put a mask on because he's like, I don't want to get hounded by all these fans. It's
Oh my gosh.
like you're not that famous
No,
actually.
totally. I took care of this guy once who's a Major League Baseball pitcher. This is kind of a funny story. I did one of my crazy procedures on him,
Oh,
and while he was with us, like he's like, a 6 foot white guy. Like nobody in Seattle, like nobody cares. Like nobody cares. Like you could be literally we have members of Pearl Jam kind of walk through our clinic all the time because we give some of them care and and nobody even recognizes them because they're like 50-ish 55-year-old old white guys like
right.
it's not like you're like 8 feet tall like like Shaquille O'Neal walking through you're just like you look and this guy was like I don't want to be in the lobby somebody's gonna notice me I'm like no nobody's gonna care dude and we'll get you back fast and yeah he was just so fixed on that I'm like it doesn't matter you don't need to wear a mask you're like you're good trust me you're good
So
so
funny.
yeah, it's kind of funny being in that world, like, especially with the Seahawks. I got to meet like Snoop Dogg, I got to meet like Chris Pratt, Will
Really?
Ferrell. I got to meet all these guys who were like, I felt like the movie Big Fish, where like I was that random guy who happened to know everybody who was like funky famous, and like these guys would just be standing in the corner of the locker room and like excited about what I did when what they are doing is really kind of world changing as well. Like, and Will Ferrell
Right.
was like the most vanilla normal dude I'd ever met. Like he was like totally normal, like
Yeah.
just like with his kids, just like wanted to be there. Chris Pratt was funny because I got to chat with him right around the time Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and I
Well,
was on the sideline, and the Seahawks they don't really care about that's not they're not that excited about somebody like Chris Pratt. Let's just put it that way. If it were like, maybe somebody else would be a little different. And so he's
Yeah.
standing there hooting and hollering. He's a big Seahawks fan. He's from this area, and I walk up to him, not realizing that he had like four phones in his hand and like all this stuff. And I was like, I gotta shake Star-Lord's hand, man. I gotta shake Star-Lord's. And he just starts like, oh, that's great. And he like has four phones. I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like mess with your vibe here. And he's like, "Oh no, I appreciate you." And so we chatted for like a minute, and that was that. And it's
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I'm a
so,
Chris Pratt
just having
fan.
the confidence and the comfort to just, I'm a pretty extroverted guy. I think the medicine helps me connect with people, and I'm hoping that that connection like is what helps people feel like, I love that about your channel. Is like you feel like you're having a conversation with somebody. You
Yeah.
feel like it's comfortable. It's not too like heavy-handed. And for me, I kind of take that slightly more educational bend and that casual bend. And for me, the education, the casual part comes in these kind of conversations. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I think some of the best people. I grapple with this a lot. Sometimes I think the best people to put their mind to stuff like this, like boots and stuff, are people that come from outside,
yeah,
like having a medical expertise. Like me, I have a language background that I've always been, I've always been a student of language, and that helps me from certain angles as well. Uh,
yeah,
I think it's in like tech.
yeah.
He's
Like
a
a
business consultant.
consultant. Yeah,
Yeah, and so I think it takes, sometimes it takes a village, and I think it really does. Having an outside expertise and then just having this be your hobby, it really allows you to think deeply,
differently.
apply your
Yep.
knowledge base to the craft and analyze it. Because, like, I can't tell you how many times I talk to like traditional craftsmen that are intergenerational, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah. Yeah.
they just follow a recipe. They don't think intellectually or philosophically even necessarily about what they're doing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it takes somebody from the outside to come in and say, "Oh,
It's
well,
almost like procedural for them, and we're looking at it from a totally different perspective, like artistically versus like I'm just trying to get some boots out.
right,
Like, well, what
exactly,
about the last, and what about the leather, and what about this type of sole, and like the stitch construction? And they're like, I don't do that. Like I do Goodyear well, like you're like, oh, kind of interesting to kind of hear that, I imagine, and kind of gives them a different perspective on things.
right. It is, and looking at different, well, for example, like beer tasting, wine tasting, things like this. Um,
Yeah.
there's an art to experiencing the spirits, and it's the same with leather. You could
Yep.
look at it. You could judge its wax content. You could
Yeah.
judge the grain. You could judge the pigments that they've applied to it. And
Yeah.
beyond that, the shape of the last, all that other stuff. Like you could really
Yeah.
take your your background and your training, no matter what that was, and apply it uniquely to this hobby. I think that's invaluable, and that's why whenever I watch your videos, like you always bring. I always learn something new. Like
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
learning from you. Absolutely, I'm gathering new insights every time you do a review. It's like, I before I'm gonna do a review, I check to see if you've covered the brand already, especially if I haven't heard
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it. Because you had experience talking to the guys at Kia Toku.
Yeah.
I didn't really. I didn't have a dialogue going with them, so I'm just coming at this just looking at the product itself, not knowing
Yeah.
anything about the backstory or anything. So
For sure. For sure.
yeah, so and that's what I love about this community too is, nobody's really like like the authority is decentralized, and
Yes. That's a great way to
and
put it. Yep.
yeah, and we all have a say, we all have a voice, we all have a unique
Yeah.
perspective, and that I really appreciate the angle that you've taken, and I would encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because
Appreciate it.
I find it useful as heck. So
Well,
absolutely.
I look at it as like a kind of a bit of like we used to journal, I guess. Some people used to journal. Like this is sort of my journal of footwear. And where I was 4 or 5 years ago is a different place than I am now. And I'm sure where I am 5 years from now will be different than I am now. And that's okay. And
Right.
it's like style, style evolves. Like what we're really into now seems to be that heritage, vibe, at least amongst the people who are in this space. And the identity around that will shift a little bit over time. And it'll just be interesting to see how it all plays out and how
Yeah,
people adapt and how our tastes change too. And it's just fun
absolutely.
to have a voice in that space, I
Yes,
think.
it is. It
Great.
is. And I think you nailed it. Keeping this as a hobby is
Yeah,
is definitely where we should keep it. That way we still can, have time with our families and
exactly. Oh,
devote time to our jobs and, maybe
yeah.
relax sometimes.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to do that. Yeah, it is for me it's that sort of fun balance. I mean, my family comes first. Work is
Yeah,
probably a fairly not distant second, but it's definitely a second.
yeah.
And then the hobbies are like I'm not a guy who sits around. I like a busybody, so like
Mhm.
I'm like learning about it. I'm sitting there like studying this thing. I'm putting it on my feet, and then I'm like, you know what? I want to like once I have my thoughts formed enough, I will go ahead and talk about it and share my thoughts. And my thoughts may change,
Yes,
and that's okay. And it's
absolutely.
fun to have that dialogue, both with yourself, because I think we sort of have something within us that wants to share, but like then it becomes
Yes.
a dialogue with other people. So super cool.
Absolutely. And that to me is the absolute best, doing this channel. It's brought me to people like you and I'm just
Likewise.
endlessly thankful for that. So
Absolutely. Well, I feel exactly the same way. And like I say, you were one of the first people I latched onto when I was watching videos, subscribed early, and have stayed just constantly. I watch every video, I
thanks,
kind of
man. I
like
appreciate
get
that.
my little iPhone stand, and I just pop it up, and just this thing's got Dale's Leatherworks all over it. Aero Surfer LV back in the day was frequently visited, and I love the metal soundtracks early on because I used to be a metal I used to like Tool and Helmet and Rage Against the Machine. That was sort of my era of like late high school, like listening to those bands and hearing the sort of like that vibe. I was like, oh yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah. The grunge. Yeah, I'm into grunge. I'm into
And I think you transition from like largely that to then like rolling into like the talk part, which I love. Like okay, I'm gonna get this like music and kind of impressions and style and like how this looks paired with whatever outfit you're wearing or whatever, and then boom, it goes to like discussion, which I love, which
Oh,
just
awesome.
great.
I
It's a
appreciate
good
that
way to
feedback because I was thinking about maybe backing off the editing so much because it was taking up so much time. But if
sure.
you like it, if I've seen other people say no, I like it that way. So
Yeah, totally.
thank you for
I
the
think as
encouragement.
long as whatever keeps it enjoyable for you. For me, it's like it takes a little more effort to use this camera and like, like set it all up and get the lighting right versus like downstairs in my literally that like reddish table is my shoe polishing station. And I just have I literally have my like iPhone and I have a little stand and I just lean it down like this and I sound like, okay, it's 1080p, 30 frames a second. And I have it like a couple places where I have like lights and I just turn them on and we're good to go. And
Nice.
then I can just record, and it's like much easier rather than something that requires a little bit more like process. But
Right.
sometimes I want to do this and make it look nicer, like, and it sort of just depends on how you feel. So I love
Yeah,
it.
it really does, and you hit the nail on the head. You gotta do something that's gonna keep you enjoying the process.
Otherwise, it's tedious. And then you
Otherwise we burn out. Yeah,
Yeah, I have
absolutely. Yeah.
a buddy who's pretty became pretty active in this space, but he's not put out videos for the past 6 months, and he's totally burnt out. But he's really like a perfectionist about details and like the video and like he's like was like like should I get this third like B camera and the C camera? And I'm like, dude, I got one camera and my cell phone like to do this with,
Right.
and I think he just got to the point where he's like, I feel like I'm putting so much effort into producing this one content that like and it looks amazing when he puts it out, but I'm like, you could tell that that's a lot of effort. And
Yeah.
unless you're really into the effort, then it may not be that the juice is worth the squeeze. So for me, less work, more about the boots and the shoes. And
Yeah.
as long as it look good enough, I'm cool with it. Like,
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. And we might as well enjoy it while it lasts because eventually
yeah,
AI is just gonna
it's gonna take it all over
take
and
it all.
yeah, eliminate us. What is it? Skynet is here, my friend.
Yeah.
Skynet is here, ready
Yeah.
to take over the flat Earth, and we're gonna have molten Terminators amongst us.
Right.
I'm gonna start calling my channel John Connor's Welted Wear pretty soon.
I love it. At least we'll be able to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and listen to Guns N' Roses. I'm super excited about that. Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
Me too. Me too.
You
Just
know.
plug the
Yeah,
Matrix
yeah.
into the
Click
back of my
right there.
head.
No, I know Kung Fu.
Put me in that pod of warm
Oh
liquid goo and
man.
like just let me enjoy my ribeye steak and wine and
That sounds ideal. I might do that for dinner
dinner.
tonight. That sounds too good right now.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, this has been
Awesome.
a lot of friend. Or sorry, this has been a lot of fun. I do need to
Likewise.
pick up some kids. So
There you go. Likewise. Hey, it's a pleasure, Dale. We should definitely do this again, and
yes,
looking forward to seeing this out on the YouTubes.
yes, me too. I will leave a link to Welted Wear in the description below. Go subscribe because he is an esteemed gentleman. I vouch for all of his opinions. He is
Flat
a
Earth and all.
yes, flat Earth and all.
The flat, but if you know, it slowly rounds. It's very slowly rounds. It's how it goes in my world.
Exactly. And so wherever you're located on this flat, non-rotating, non-spinning Earth, we hope you do like, share, and subscribe. We hope you enjoyed this video.
Dude, that was awesome. Have a good one. All right.
All right, you too.
Yeah.
Later, brother.